Okay. Hi. Hi. Looks like we're back. Well, hello, YouTube. Are you back? Hello, hello. Funny how this works, isn't it? It's funny. Really kind of amazing how these internet issues work out. Okay, I'm going to just let this thing just sort of steep for a minute. We're back again for our third try here on YouTube, and we're on Twitch. So we're just gonna press on. They can do whatever they want to, and we're just gonna press on. And I'm pretty sure it's not my internet, because I don't know why YouTube would suddenly go out and Twitch be okay, and then Twitch go out and YouTube at the same time. Doesn't make sense to me, but never know. Maybe it's just a strange, weird, sort of a perfectly normal, easily explainable issue. All right, so I'm going to stitch this thing together in the edit bay, because that's what I'm good at. So it just occasionally just goes out, got nothing, for no reason, just kind of just goes out, and it comes back again. All right, so here we go. So we've talked about 4 different ways that it's gone again on Twitch. I'm not going to wait for this forever. Hang on one second. It looks like I've got it. I'm seeing a signal. All right. All right. Okay. Look, there comes a point when there's not much more I can do about this. So I'm just going to push on through. And if it turns out we get lost again, then just look for the recording. If they have a problem with the recording on YouTube, then I will move it to Rumble, and then I'll post a link. All right, here we go again. So I just saw a flash on my screen. Hello, NSA or CIA or FBI or whoever is listening in. Good to see you. Kind of wondering how you sleep at night, Some of you out there must have seen the Untouchables and the FBI on TV. I did. I believed it. Anyway, we're back. All right, here we go. Green flashes. Excellent. A helium voice now? I can't just keep, I just got to keep going. All right, so here we go. Now, if you look at those 4 examples of how the left constructs arguments using their rhetorical intelligence, and if we walk into those arguments, we lose. Now let's talk about how you would argue election integrity. Notice I didn't say the F word about elections. I'm just saying election integrity. If you say that you want to make elections more secure by going back to an election day, among other things, and requiring an ID and a name on a voter's registration list, the first argument the left will give you is that this is unfair, especially to people of color, and that it's better to have a few fraudulent votes in there than to deprive anybody of their precious right to vote. Okay? And that works for most people in this country, because that is how our country is structured. We believe, as opposed to virtually every other legal system in the world except for Britain, where we got ours from, we believe that it's better to let 100 guilty people go free than it is to put an innocent person in jail. The Soviets, by the way, Lenin said precisely verbatim the opposite. Much better to kill 100 innocent people than let an anti-revolutionary get away. So we believe that if you're going to err, you should err on the side of the innocent. And so when they say that voter fraud is not as significant as voter suppression, that sounds convincing to us. So we're not going to walk into that kill box. What we're going to say is voter fraud is voter suppression. Voter fraud is voter suppression. If somebody votes illegally and I vote legally, and that person votes exactly opposite the way that I vote, then that person has stolen my vote. If it's a legal voter, then we cancel each other out. That's how elections work. But if that person is illegally voting because they're either not a citizen or because they're voting twice or 8 times or 10 times or whatever, or because they're dead, right? If all of that stuff or any of that stuff happens and they end up voting against me, my vote has been stolen. I am a victim of voter suppression. They have stolen my vote. And so voter fraud is voter suppression. And you know it and I know it. And we're not going to get into this argument about which one of them is worse than the other because they're essentially the same thing. You're cheating. And now we get to the first of the real arguments, right? You're cheating. And you like that. You know it's easier to cheat with mail-in ballots. You know it's easier to cheat if you have an election month instead of an election day. Pretty soon we'll have an election year. Pretty soon in California, I'll be able to cast my votes for the 2032 elections. Why? What candidates are going to run? Doesn't matter. It's going to be the Democrats, right? So we are going to ask you, Democrats, why is it that all of your policies, all of them, and all of your arguments, every single one of them makes it easier to cheat on elections? You're saying the cheating doesn't occur. Just for a second, let's say that's true. Everything that you say you're doing makes it easier to cheat. You should be concerned about this because you don't want those mega Republicans to come in and steal your democracy, right? You would want a tight, fair, transparent, accurate election because you tell us as the left that everybody loves your policies. So if everybody loves your policies, why is it that everything you want to do with the election process makes it easier to cheat? I'd really like an answer to that because I don't need to cheat. I want an honest election. I want a fair election. I want a transparent election. And everything that you're doing is designed to make it easier to cheat. Now they bring out the nuclear weapon, right? And they'll say, well, see, unlike you racist Republicans, we think that you should be able to mail in your votes and not have an ID because going to a voting place on election day or going to get an ID is unfair to people of color. It represses the black vote, what they usually say. But it means that people of color are underrepresented because of how difficult it is to get an ID and to go to a polling place on election day. That's what they say, right? Okay. So your position, Democrats, is that black people are too stupid or too lazy or too both to be able to get an ID and to figure out where the nearest polling place is. Whether or not you want to say that's what you meant, that's what you are saying. That is exactly the argument that you're using. You're saying that black people can't get an ID and they can't find a place to vote on election day because they're too stupid or they're too lazy. And it's only thanks to white people like you that you're able to maintain the right to vote for these poor. No, you know what? I don't need to. I'm not. There's a video out there. I'll see if I can find the link to it anyway, put it in the description. It's the most powerful video on the internet right now. And here's basically how it works. You got this guy, I think his name is Ari something or other. I should know his name because it's that good. He goes to, I think it's Berkeley, might be UCLA. Anyway, he goes to a liberal college campus. It's a man in the street interview thing. And he goes up to 6 or 7 young, white, rich kids, liberals on campus, and he asks them very simply, he says, do you think that voter ID requirements are racist? And every one of them says, yes. Every one of these rich white kids, it's Ami Horowitz. Muted again, are we? No sound again? Okay. Some people have sound and video. Refresh. That's all I can tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So this is the 8th time they've tried to interrupt what I'm saying. I don't care. Okay, so here we go. Right, Ari, somebody had his name. Ari Horowitz, Ami Horowitz. He goes on to these college campuses and asks these young, rich, white, privileged kids whether or not requiring an ID to vote is racist. I see. So black people too stupid to figure out how to use the internet, to find out where to go and vote. And they're too lazy and too stupid to get an ID. That's your position? Yes. Then this genius, Ami Horowitz, goes to a middle of a black neighborhood and says, do you think that it is racist or unfair to require an ID to vote? And he asks about 7 black people on the street. And the first woman says, no, I don't think it's unfair. Why would I think it's unfair? How else would you know if you're a citizen? And then they ask the next people. Then he asks them, well, is it hard for you to have an ID? He's talking to 7 street people, right? Street people in many cases. And he says, and the black American citizens who've still got their head together say, what are you talking about? I have to use an ID every day. Every time I go to 7-Eleven, I need an ID. I need an ID to do virtually everything. I need an airplane. I need an ID if I'm going to fly on an airplane. What? Fly on an airplane? Blacks on an airplane? That's what the liberals think. Blacks on an airplane? Well, of course you need an ID to get on an airplane, but no black people have ever been on airplanes, because if they had been on airplanes, they would have had to have an ID. And if they have an ID, then they would be able to present their ID at the voting place. So what these rich, white, spoiled, racist, liberal kids are saying is that black people don't fly on airplanes because you have to have an ID in order to fly on an airplane, and they're too lazy and stupid to get an ID. And they're too lazy and stupid to get an ID so that they can cash a check or do anything else that requires an ID. Deposit a check, go to the bank. You can't cash a check without an ID. You can't do any of this stuff, okay? That's what they're saying. And when he says to these black Americans, yeah, exactly. Eric, I don't even know why I didn't even think about that. Eric Blake just came up with the most obvious, brilliant. I don't know how it possibly could have been just escaped my mind, probably because it's too obvious. Eric Blake asks, oh, and by the way, how many black Americans drive cars? Cars? Black Americans can't drive cars. Cars are complicated pieces of machinery. They're not smart enough to drive a car. That's what these liberals are saying. They're saying that because they're saying that black people can't have IDs. It's difficult for them to get IDs, It's very, very restrictive for them. So I guess there are no black people in America who drive, because you know what? In order to drive, you have to have a driver's license, and a driver's license is the ID of choice in this country, right? So these racist, condescending, supremacist, white, spoiled, rich progressives are so filled with this racism. And let's not forget the savior complex, the white savior complex. Thank God there are young, rich, white, spoiled, progressive American liberal kids to save black people from their own ignorance and their own laziness, their own stupidity. That's the argument that the Democrats are making. And not only is that a poisonous argument, but black America doesn't buy it. And finally, to put the button on this thing, when Ami asks them, when Ami says to them, there are college kids, white college kids, who say that black people can't get IDs, and he's just talking to 7 different people. What do you mean I can't get an ID? I can't go anywhere with an ID. Then I'll say some of these white students say that the internet is a little bit too complicated for black people to handle. This woman says something to the effect of, I work on the internet. I've been on the internet for 30 years. What do you mean it's too complicated? Then he'll ask people, and I'm talking about rappers. I'm talking about everybody in this town. They say, do you know where the nearest DMV is? Yeah, 124th and 19th Street. Instantly, right? Yeah, it's down that way, 2 blocks to the left and then around the corner. Every one of them knows, right? So this is how you win this argument about voter integrity. You not only say everything that you're trying to do makes it easier to cheat. Why is that? And you're also saying, okay, I'd stopped and started this thing so many times that I didn't hit record on that. So I'm going to record that after I do the end of this show. I'm not going to put you through it again. I'm just gonna stitch this Frankenstein thing together. I know it sounds idiotic, but nevertheless, that's what we're gonna do because we are having problems today. I'm just gonna repeat what I just said. I'm not gonna do it now. Okay. So there you go, right? That's how it works. That's how you win. And the way we beat YouTube is by dealing with the fact that they've tried to cut off our stream at YouTube and at Twitch now 5, 6, 7 times. And we keep going. So I'll just edit it. You can find it in one piece on YouTube. And if YouTube has a problem with it, then I will put the link at YouTube for the Rumble case. By the way, I said I wasn't going to do anything about the Crowder thing, and I'm not, because I want this to go away. Last thing we need is to keep blowing this thing up. But this is the thing that I don't understand. If I understood Steve correctly, he was basically saying that cutting his pay because he was either demonetized or booted off of YouTube is playing into the hands of big tech. And that he basically does everything on Rumble. And nothing would make me happier. We post all of our videos on Rumble. All of our videos are hosted on Rumble. We put them up on YouTube as well, but everything that we link to on our website is up on Rumble because it's a free speech platform. However, if you want to reach people, oh, come on, what was his name? I had it in my head. Nobody move. Everybody hold. Everybody just stay in place. So as far as the Rumble, thing goes versus YouTube, yeah, that's it. Sorry, I should have known. I just plain forgot it. So why are we even on YouTube? Why don't we just do everything on Rumble? Why don't we just do everything on Rumble? Well, really what the question means is, why are we going to YouTube in the first place? Why? And I'm going to use the same answer that Willie Sutton used. Willie Sutton was a bank robber, and somebody asked him, why do you rob banks? You know what he said? Why do you rob banks, Willie? And Willie said, because that's where the money is. Why are we on YouTube? Because that's where the viewers are, right? Do we have to make concessions about this? Yes. Do we have to self-censor ourselves? To some degree, yes. But when we were in the heart of the COVID thing, and I started talking about whether or not people should buy a Victrola, pretty soon people knew what I was talking about. It was another word that begins with V. So I wasn't saying the word that begins with V that was so controversial 2 or 3 years ago, but I was able to get my message across pretty much verbatim because we're smarter than they are, right? So I didn't buy a Victrola. I almost did. Somebody came up to me, 3 days. A friend of mine knew an awful lot about medical stuff. Also knew an awful lot about phonographs. And I was about 2 or 3 days away from buying a Victrola. And she came up to me and said, you might want to rethink about this purchase. And I said, why is that? And she told me, and I said, that's not a Victrola. That's not how a radio works. And then she said, it's because it's not a radio. And I thought, isn't that interesting? So if this is what we have to do to get the message out there, then welcome to the world of socialism. This is the world I've been living in for the last 5 months now. This is what the Russians did, what the Soviet people did. It's what every oppressed people do. They figure out a way to say what they need to say in a way that cannot get them in trouble. Right? Samistats were these underground newspapers. And I know I've missed a super chat there, but I didn't want to get off the roll. And by the way, the first time chat, I always listen to these. Avenging Pineapple says, excuse me, but those of us in the chat room are trying to chat, but you keep interrupting with your constant talking. Show some consideration. I don't know if that was directed at me, but if it is, it's bloody brilliant. Anyway, I keep glancing over there, and you get the idea. So all I'm saying about Steve's argument is that I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying I don't understand it. Steve Crowder has just short of 6 million subscribers on YouTube. He's got about 1 million subscribers on Rumble. That's about Now, I did promise there'd be no math, and I don't have my calculator handy, but if I had to guess, I would say that's about 1/6, 15% or something of the roughly of the subscribers that he has on YouTube, he has on Rumble. So if he gets knocked out of YouTube, then his value, if he gets knocked out of YouTube and say, well, I'm doing everything on Rumble, then just by looking at the subscriptions, he appears to have 1/6 the value in terms of the eyeballs, right? But he wants to get paid the same for this. I don't understand how that argument works. And just so I can get this out of my system, William Renner says I'm on Crowder's side, Bill, against Big Con. All right, so let's do this like we did last time. Let's keep this civil, like people who are on the same team. We're not going to get nasty. We're not going to get aggressive. We're not going to lie. We're not going to slur. I'm just going to have a quick conversation about that. William, I'm not asking this in a sarcastic way. I'm not asking this in a challenging way. How do you make that argument that Big Con is on the side of the tech companies? If Stephen's point was if he gets banned or strikes on YouTube, that plays into the hands of big tech because they'll just give them to him in order to cut his revenue down. Doesn't that also mean that Daily Wire's revenue would be decreased by 80%, right? I don't see how that argument works. Now, I might be missing it. I'm certainly willing to admit that I'm missing the point. But to say that if we're going to pay somebody $1, let's just, because the money doesn't really matter. If we're going to pay somebody $1 for their viewers, and then it turns out that they only have 10%, let's say, of their viewers, and I still have to pay them $1, but their value to me is no longer $1 worth of value. So I don't understand that. And since I'm not going to end up doing a big video on this because I want it to go away, I will add one thing that I didn't mention on this one. Okay, here we go. DW's revenue would not be decreased by much because they would have the sponsorship still, the membership still, and the merchandise still. Well, let's put aside the membership and the merchandise because Stephen has both of those. The sponsorship, their ad revenues would go through the toilet, right? If I'm going to buy an ad on Daily Wire and they tell me that they've got 5,000 viewers, I'm saying 5 million viewers, and now all of a sudden we don't have those 5 million viewers, then why would the advertisers pay the same amount of money? So GK Masterson, so it's all costs and all risk on Crowder and all benefits on Daily Wire. If Steve Crowder loses 4/5 of his audience, right, then Daily Wire loses the value of their advertising. Their advertisers are paying them per eyeballs. So when the eyeballs go down, the ad revenues go down. And I don't understand how that works. The sponsorship ads are read during the show. They're read during the show because he's reaching 5 million people. If he's reaching fewer than 5 million people, then the ad revenue goes down because that's how advertising works. The reason Super Bowl ads, back when everybody watched TV, were so expensive was because everybody was watching. Everybody was watching. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And the thing I really don't understand is this. If you don't like the deal, then don't take the deal. This is the part that I find to be the most confusing for me. Look, I was on both sides of this issue. Let me explain what I mean about that. I was editing TV shows in Hollywood, and I was writing a blog. And I got a little bit of exposure during the blog, but it's nothing like millions and millions of views. Never. Nothing close to that. I got an offer to go to PJTV. They hired me as an editor. And then, okay, I'm gonna get to this friends don't send those kind of terms thing. All right, so let me everybody just cool your jets for a second, and then when I'm finished, I'll take all the questions there are. So here's what actually happened, right? I got a chance to work at PJTV as an editor. I thought, well, if I'm going to be an editor, I might as well be editing conservative content because they're making it difficult for me here. So I went to PJTV as an editor. Process of just taking the shot when it appeared. I mentioned this last time. I'll mention it again. I was working as an editor on the floor. We got all these editing bays there. PJTV's brand new. They're doing live TV. They're trying to do a 3 o'clock in the afternoon live TV program. Here's PJTV news for the day, right? I'm there watching this. I'm editing it for, I don't know, a week or two. All of a sudden, the executive producer comes in and says, our host, one of our 2 anchors, is stuck in traffic and will not be here in time. Do any of you know how to read a teleprompter? And I know how to read a teleprompter. I didn't know how to read a teleprompter. I just knew how to read. But I'd been a theater student, and I'd given thousands of live star lectures back in the Miami Planetarium, starting when I was 14 or 15. So I'm pretty good at thinking on my feet, right? So get in there, Bill. So put me in, coach, Can you play first base? Yes, I can. Never played first base before anyway, but I did it. So I go in, not this again. Yes, it's this again. I go in there. I'm watching the teleprompter. I've got my little thing in there, and they say, "Okay, Bill, we're going to go to the RNC floor now." So I say, "Okay, so let's go down to our associate Joe Dingle down there on the floor of the RNC." And just as I'm doing the toss, the guy says, "No, wait, we don't have the video," and all these other guys I've seen in the past, because they are having teething problems, get this deer in the headlight kind of look like, what do we do if we don't have the video? Told me that. I said, you know what? Before we go there, let's talk about something that'll give this a little bit more perspective. Before we go down to our floor, let's talk about what it actually means in terms of whether a plank is in the thing. And so I just basically just ad-libbed, okay? Now let's get to the point. I was a nobody when I got started at PJTV. Nobody. I was well known as a blogger, but in terms of, the superstar you see in front of you today, nobody knew who I was. And when I went to PJTV and then they told me that I could do my videos as essays on PJTV, I said yes. The deal that I signed, the agreement rather that I came to with PJTV was that PJTV would own the videos that I made because they're paying for them. They would own them. Now, as it turned out, I was able to say, okay, you own the videos, but I want to maintain the rights to the scripts. So technically, I could publish a book of the Afterburner series, and technically, I could remake them. Then those would be mine. But basically, I didn't do either of those things. All of the Afterburners that people saw, the atomic bomb Afterburner, 3.5 days, all of them. And I was doing one a week. And they started letting a few out. Next thing you know, it's starting to get some real traffic. Millions and millions of people starting to see these things. So, okay. Now, where are those Afterburners that I did, the 200 Afterburners? Where are they? They're gone. They were on the PJTV YouTube channel, and they were on PJTV, and PJTV is gone, and those videos are gone too. Now, I kept the best 7 or 8 or 10 of them, the ones that I thought were timeless. I've still got those, and I keep threatening to bring those back out, and I will, from the vault. Just a little busy right now. But in any event, they're gone. Am I unhappy about this? Yes. Am I angry about this? No. And I'm not angry about it because they paid me to do those videos. Number one with a bullet was a firewall. They paid me. I got paid to do what I wanted to do in the first place. That was a good deal for me. So I can't complain when those videos disappear because they're not my videos anymore. I knew that going into it. And since I knew that going into it, what that meant was that I was a PJTV wage slave. I was getting a weekly salary, and in exchange for my weekly wage, my slave wage, I would produce videos, and they would air them, and they would give me money. It seemed like a good idea to me at the time, and it was a good idea. Now, After about 3 or 4 years of being a wage slave at PJTV, I had developed enough of a following that I decided to leave PJTV, and I decided to partner in a company called Declaration Entertainment. Declaration Entertainment was going to take whatever popularity I already had doing my videos, and instead of me being a wage slave for PJTV, I would do them as part of a company that I co-owned. My partner in Declaration Entertainment was a guy named Jeremy Boring, and for 3 or 4 years, we produced firewalls. Firewalls and afterburners are precisely the same thing. They are exactly the same thing. It's just a different skin. I didn't own the afterburner copyright, or at least the brand name, and I didn't want to get into a legal battle, so I just changed the name, changed the look. Firewalls and afterburners, interchangeable. Okay, now we're making firewalls, and now I own the firewalls. Am I happier about this? Yes. Am I getting a steady paycheck? No. No, I'm not. And we're trying to figure out how to get enough members to pay for this stuff. We're still working that problem. And this was in 2010, so I've been at this for 13 years now, right? So I gain the ownership of these videos. I lose the security of a paycheck from a billionaire who was behind PJTV, and that's a trade-off. Okay? Now, when I say I've been on both sides of this, when I say I've been on both sides of both sides, I've been on Steve Crowder's side on this. I have been a wage slave and had my work get paid for and then belong to somebody else and disappear. And when I didn't like that, I went off on my own, the way Steven's on his own. When I say I'm on Steve Crowder's side on this, I'm working here by myself. I got nothing like his reach. He's earned it. I'm not complaining about it. I'm not saying it's not fair. On the contrary, he's earned every bit of his audience. But he and I are very much alike like this. I don't want to work anymore for another company on a daily basis and come in, get my paycheck, and do my stuff. I don't want to do that. I've got other things I want to do, and for that I need my own membership. And I'm just barely hanging on to that. But I was a wage slave there. You know who else was a wage slave there? Andrew Klavan was a wage slave at PJTV. You know who else? Alfonso Rachel was a wage slave at PJTV, and he was a wage slave because I brought him in. I said, you need to look at this guy. This guy's fantastic. PJTV saw it, called him, made him an offer, and then everything that Zoe did for the time he was there was owned by PJTV, disappeared when PJTV disappeared, but he got paid an incredible amount of money compared to what he was making before, and he thought it was worth it. I came out of PJTV not more famous than I was when I went in. I came out of PJTV a bit famous. When I went into PJTV, nobody knew the slightest bit about who the hell I was. So when Steve says that young people should never take a deal like that, I'm not going to argue with him. It's his opinion. I can tell you this, though. I took the deal, and it was the best thing I ever did. If I had not taken that deal, I wouldn't be here now. You wouldn't know who I was. I'd be editing reality TV shows in Hollywood for liberals, 24-year-olds. Okay? I took the deal, and after 3 years, I came out of it famous. And then when I came out of it famous, I was able to go out on my own, start my own company, and then keep the stuff. All right? That's the decision that I made. Now, like I said, I've been on both sides of both sides. So let's talk about the other side. I have had, certainly on one occasion, I think on two. Jonathan, I'm going to get to that if I can. I'm just not going to interrupt it. I have had at least 2 conversations with Jeremy Boring about doing what I do at Daily Wire. And I got the exact same kind of contract that Steve got. It is an aggressively protective initial offer. It had in it all of the things that Stephen complained about. And when I got that offer, one of the things that was part of the offer is I'd have to give up the membership. Daily Wire would assume my membership. We just port my members over. A lot of my members got ported from PJTV over to BillWhittle.com, so that's how it works. It's an asset, right? So that was the offer. not only would it have been a regular paycheck, much more importantly, it would have been a significant amount of advertising, marketing, and promotion, and I would be seen by people instead of being escorted off into the plains of Mordor here by the shadow banning. All right, I got that offer twice. Once for this kind of thing, and then later he asked me if I wanted to do historical stuff for Daily Wire as an employee, just as a regular show that they had. I said, I don't know, man. It seems like an awful lot of research and it doesn't allow me to do anything else. I don't get to keep my membership, and I got other things I want to do. I think I'm going to pass on this one. Okay, so I passed on it because I didn't like the terms. Now, like I said, I've been on both sides of both sides. A couple years go by, and I get an offer from Daily Wire out of the blue. I'd already turned them down in terms of being an on-staff historical guy because I just didn't think I could do it. And I didn't think I wanted to do it. But after a couple years, I get a phone call, which I didn't tape, by the way. And the phone call was from Jeremy, and it said, hey, we want to do something for the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. And we've talked about it, and we can't think of anybody. Thank you, William. Was that for me? What a fine fellow you are. See, this is how it's supposed to work. We had a different opinion. Now we're having conversation. I'm learning things. You're learning things. You don't have to agree with me. This is how civilization works. That's very kind of you. $10 super chat from William Renner. You're a fine fellow. I appreciate that very much, especially coming as a result of this. So let me get back to my story. So Jeremy said, we can't think of anybody who would be better at this. Would you like to do it? Now, here's what's different about this. There's two things different about this. First of all, it's a one-off. I don't have to give up my membership to do it. I don't have to give up my independence to do it. It's a one-off. Secondly, and much more importantly, thank you very much as another super chat. Good evening, Bill. I just want to encourage you. I appreciate your work. Keep it up. It means the world to me. Thank you. So when I got the offer for Apollo 11, it was a one-off, which means I didn't have to give up all the stuff that I turned down on the previous two times. And secondly, and more importantly, it was something that I not only loved, it was something I knew like the back of my hand. And I thought, unlike the first offer they gave me, I'm not going to have to be doing research all the time. I just write this, right? I just write it off the top of my head. That's pretty much what I did. And I was so pleased because when I walked into this, I thought I'd get a green screen thing like we had at PJTV. I thought I was going to get a green screen studio, and that was that. And when they brought me up after I'd agreed to the deal, and they showed me the set that they'd constructed for this thing, I fell down. I couldn't believe it. GK Masters says, you like mustard on cheeseburgers, so we're cool no matter what. She's a mayonnaise person. Ignore that. She's otherwise quite a good person. Okay. I saw the set that they put together that they built for Apollo 11, and it blew my mind. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter here. That set was expensive. It was an expensive set. All of the props that they had there were very expensive to rent. They were renting on a daily basis. I was behind schedule on the scripts, as usual. They brought in a set designer, and the editors put so much into that series. Thank my goodness. Monk and Training on Tim Pool Crowder said the clauses were the issue because the next Crowder wouldn't grow their brand with their hands tied like that. In my view is Daily Wire, and the deal that Daily Wire offered me for Apollo 11 was the exact same initial offer that they made to me about being a regular commentator or about being a regular history guy, and I turned that offer down twice because the offer said exactly what Steven Crowder said it would. We will own all of this into perpetuity, and period, right? Period. So I thought about it. I thought about it for, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds. I said I'd love to do it. Now, I got paid a lump sum, which turned out to be, I think I did the math on this, 0.1% of what the offer was to Steve Crowder. But that's not really important because the money's not the point here, right? Now we'll get to the brass tacks. Now we get to what's really going on behind the scenes with Daily Wire and all the rest. I took a look at the offer, and there were parts about the offer I didn't like. I had no back-end participation on it, and I had no carve-out for my members. I would have to short sheet my members by working on this, which is what I've been doing now lately, and I'm losing members because of it. I understand that. I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do. I wanted the money. I needed the money. I needed the money to keep this little adventure rolling. But mostly, I agreed to do it because I thought the story about the space program needed to be told. I thought if people understood what really happened over the course of time, there'd no longer be any issue about whether the moon landing happened or not, because what happened on Apollo 11 was not much different than what happened on Apollo 10, which was not much different than what happened on Apollo 9 or Apollo 8 or Apollo 7 or Gemini 12, all the way back to shooting a chimp up into space, one unbroken line, right? So I said, I'll do it. And I did it. It's the best work I've ever done. I am unspeakably proud of the work I did on Apollo 11. And I have 3 heroes in my life. One of them is Neil Armstrong. Another one is Burt Rutan. Burt Rutan watched this series, and he read out loud at Oshkosh, personally read my script segment on that picture of Neil Armstrong in the LEM, and he was crying. So I got to watch my hero, one of the people I admire most in the world, reading my words to a group of pilots and having him in tears and not being able to finish a sentence because he was so moved by what I did. Now, if I had turned that offer down, that wouldn't have happened. Nobody would have seen the show. Now we get to the balance. See, I'm not saying Crowder's wrong. I'm just saying this is the decision that I made and why, and I just don't want any cheap shots out there. So, Apollo 11, what we saw, best work I ever did. It's up on YouTube for, I don't know, 6 months, a year, something like that. Then all of a sudden, it's gone. It's gone because Daily Wire took it down. Daily Wire took it down because it was valuable, and they put it behind their paywall in order to get memberships. Now, let's just be really, really honest. I'm being as straightforward as I can. Not only do I not care, if Stephen watches this or Jeremy watches this, this is where I'm trying to be. I'm just trying to be fair and honest. When Daily Wire took the Apollo 11 series off of YouTube, was I upset about that? A little. Was I disappointed? Very disappointed. Was I angry? Not at all. You know why? Because when I signed the contract, I knew that if I delivered this stuff and they paid me the thousands of dollars that we'd agreed to, then it was their stuff. So while I didn't like the decision, I understood the decision. I didn't argue about the decision because I had no business arguing about it. I knew when I made it that I was making it. It was a work for hire for someone else. Now, we really start to get to the point. Why did they put it behind the paywall? I don't know, but I do know this. Those guys, Declaration Entertainment, I'm not saying Declaration Entertainment was the parent of Daily Wire, but I am saying it was the stepdad, because Declaration Entertainment was Jeremy Boring in one office and me in an edit bay. We worked together for 4 years, went our separate ways, right? But why I'm bringing this up is I saw Jeremy in a small little room. I was in an edit bay across the hall. Then I watched him take over the entire section of the floor. Then Daily Wire took over the whole floor. Then they took over 3 floors of the building. Then they had to move to another building, took over all 4 floors of that building. Then they bought the building next to that. And just when they were ready to do that, homeless people started, making it impossible to go to work. So they moved to Nashville. Then I watched them build it up in Nashville. The reason I bring this up is because every single time I went back to Daily Wire after I left being partners with Jeremy Boring, I was impressed. I went to the first time, I said, oh, dude, this studio is much better. This is an awesome studio. I wish we had this instead of working at Rick Brown's house in his garage when we made our firewalls. He said, yeah, we're doing all right. Next time I went there, he was in a completely different room. Now he had remote control cameras. He had 3 of them, and they had a guy behind the console running these remote control cameras. Jeremy, you're kicking ass here, man. It's fantastic. It's amazing. Next time I saw him, they had studios. And by the time I got to do the Apollo 11 series, they had an entire building. They had 5 editors working on my shows. They had marketing people, advertising people. They said, we need you to do some ad reads. I said, no problem. Why? I did have the right to refuse the client. And I think out of the 12 or 13 that I did, I think there was one I didn't want to do. Okay. That's what it took to get Apollo 11, what we saw, made. It was an expensive show. And if I hadn't done those things, there would be no Apollo 11, what we saw. And if Daily Wire didn't have enough business acumen to put it behind the paywall, then there would not have been the money to produce the show in the first place. So I look at this as on a balance sheet. Do I wish I had a back end of it? Yes. Do I wish it was out there in front of the public? Yes. Am I upset that it's not? Not really. I got paid money that I needed. But more importantly, it got made, right? It got made. So there was that. Not only got made, went to number 2 in the world on Apple Podcasts in all categories, not just in the history category, in all categories. So several months after that, I got an offer again saying, hey, the Apollo 11 thing worked out really well. We were wondering if you would like to do something on the Cold War. And I said, yeah, I know. I got most of that. I know the hardware. It was an 8-episode deal, I think, 7 or 8 episode deal. And he said, no, we're not going to film this one because, the revenues on Apollo 11 weren't really that great. Maybe that's true, maybe not. I don't know. He said, we're just going to do this one as a podcast. I said, okay. So I did it. I was on episode 6 out of 8, and I said, man, this story is much bigger than I thought it would be. Much bigger. Can I get more episodes? Yeah. I'm not 100% sure about this. I honestly, genuinely don't remember. But I'm pretty sure that I did not get additional money for those additional episodes. I might have. I don't want to say that. I might have. I just, honest to God, don't remember. But it wasn't 8 episodes. Went to 13, okay? Went to 13 because I asked for more time because I thought the story was important. The Cold War was fantastic. I was so proud of that series. There's so many cool little stories in there. I was disappointed that it wasn't on video, but it was on a podcast. People got to hear it. I find out 6 months ago that they want to make it a video. So back in early November, we shot 13 episodes on another fantastic set with another fantastic crew because they had the money to do it. Do I own any of this? No. Is it going to be out there on video? Yes. Is it going to have millions of dollars of advertising and promotion behind it? Yes. Is it going to be seen by a lot of people? Yes. If I hadn't taken the deal, who would have seen it? Nobody would have seen it. Nobody. Then they asked me if I wanted to do America's Forgotten Heroes. 7 episodes. That one was easy because each one was self-contained. I didn't have to worry about running into the next episode. So we shot that, by the way. We shot America's Forgotten Heroes on video. And I thought, great, we're back where we were with PJ, back with the Apollo 11 thing. But the set wasn't nearly as impressive. And after we had shot it on video, I got a call from Jeremy saying, Bill, I just don't like the way it looks. I don't think the set's doing it, man. I think it's disappointing. Our fault. So I think we're going to release this one just as an audio. I said, it's your property, man. I just want to get it out there. So it did. Apollo 11, Cold War, and America's Forgotten Heroes, all 3 went to number 2 worldwide in all categories on Apple Podcasts. It got heard by millions of people. And I didn't get to carve out for the members. So BillWhittle.com members got less content from me. And they're getting less content from me right now, and have for the last 5 months been getting less content from me, because I think these messages, these historical messages, are so important that I am willing to risk losing the revenue I need to keep the lights on here in order to do this, because I think it's important. So that they asked me if I wanted to do something. This is right after the invasion of the Ukraine. They said, we need something on Russia. I said, okay. I knew the history of Russia pretty well. I pitched them a series called Soviet Masters of Terror, I think I called it. Okay? And it was going to be 7 episodes. I was going to cover just the 7 directors of the secret police. Dzerzhinsky, Mezhinsky, Yagoda, Yezhov, Beria, Andropov, and Putin. And I started writing this thing. And I did a lot of research and a lot of notes. Okay? And then I started writing it. I did 3-4 months of notes and reading, and I didn't deliver any of those scripts. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't write those scripts. The reason I couldn't write the scripts is because I could not explain to people how it was possible to have a secret police that murdered tens of millions of people without understanding how the government that put that police force in place worked. So it completely morphed. It is not about the secret police chiefs anymore. Now it's called it's called An Empire of Terror, A History of the Soviet Union. And I finished the 4th script. I'm about to finish the 5th. It was originally 7 episodes. I asked for 8. I did get extra money for this episode. And so now I realize I'm past the halfway mark, and Lenin is in the first half of this. Now, Lenin lived for 7 years, a little less than 7 years of the 78 years of the Soviet Union. And half of it is about Lenin. Is that balanced? Not exactly. But I'm not doing a history of the Soviet Union in terms of here's what happened in this year. I'm doing a history of how it became an empire of terror. And all of it is Lenin. All of it. Everybody blames it on Stalin. Stalin just followed the manual instructions. Lenin wrote the manual, and so I'm writing this thing, and it got much, much bigger. It's 5 times the work, right? With the exception of the extra episode. I didn't get an increase in pay, even though I'm doing a lot more work. I didn't even ask for one because I didn't think it was fair to ask for one. We made a deal. I agreed to the deal. I signed the deal. And if I want to make it bigger, then that's my issue. And I don't get to leverage that into making more money. I could have just done what I said I would have done and kicked it out the door. But I don't like kicking things out the door. I'd like to get it as right as possible. So I've been working on this thing for 5 months now. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I think it's the best stuff I've ever written. We'll see. But it's really good. Really good. And I'm just finishing the 5th episode. And it's really remarkable. I made the exact same deal as I made on the other 3. This is the same deal that I turned down twice in terms of regular employment. It's the same deal that Steve Crowder turned down. I accepted this deal for the 4th time now. Do I own any of this? Control where it's going to be seen? No. Do I get a carve out for Bill Whittle members? I'm fighting on this one. I'm going to fight hard for this one, but I have no control over that. Okay? So, this is the reality. The Cold War is coming out as a video series. The one I recorded 2.5, 3 years ago, 4 years ago almost. I've seen the first 2 episodes. They've shown me the rough cuts. Made, I don't know, it's a 45-minute episode. I probably made 100 notes. These are not American fighter jets. This is, you might want to go with the F-86 here. Nobody knows, blah, blah, blah. Okay? All of that. And the set is not quite as spectacular as the Apollo 11 set, but it couldn't be. But I walk into this room ready to record 13 episodes. I did 3 in the first day and then 2 a day. And each one of those took about 3 or 4 hours. So I had to read it once through on the teleprompter because I had to reformat the prompter, and then I had to read it again on camera. So I took the deal that Steve turned down for considerably less money because I'm not worth as much money as Steve Crowder is. But I took it because of all the stuff that I've written, including the Apollo 11 series, including the Cold War, of all the things that I've written, I think this is the most important. I don't know if it's going to be the best because there's a love that I had in Apollo 11 that I don't know if I'm going to get here. But this is the most important thing I've ever written because all across this country, there are American college kids talking about how awesome socialism is. And when I am finished with you, you will never say the S word again. So help me God. You will never say that word again. It is nothing but an indictment of everything that they are and everything that these socialists want today. It is a murder machine, and it is horrifying. And I told Jeremy and everybody else when I started this, I said, guys, there's a number of excellent producers on this one. For me, for this thing to work, this thing needs to be a punch in the gut, right? This thing has to hurt to watch. You need to hurt watching this thing. They said, we love it. Now, if Daily Wire hadn't put Apollo 11 behind the paywall and made every other business decision that they made, then they wouldn't have had the money to pay me to make this series or market it or whatever. I mean, holistically, income outcome, right? But once I made this agreement to do this series, I got in touch with the producer. Producer put me in touch with somebody. Somebody sent a proposal for the set, and they had a lot of really, really cool things in there. So the producers for the new series, Empire of Terror, said, let's get on the phone. So I talked to this young company, video Zoom conference, young people, 22, 23 years old. And they've got a tremendous design set. I apologize for all of the super chats I'm not answering. I'll get to them, as many as I can, but I don't want to lose my thread on this. So I got a chance to talk to them. Now, because Daily Wire is such a well-run business, now when they talk about the set, they say, what do you want to do? And I say, well, what have we got? Daily Wire, because it's so well run, is now able to provide the kind of high definition video wall that they use to shoot The Mandalorian in. They can create virtual sets that look absolutely real. The stuff that they did behind Mandalorian is what they've got for Empire of Terror. That's pretty cool. And so we started talking about this, and I told these guys I needed to be a punch in the gut. And then I said something that almost entered my head as I was talking. I got the producers on the phone. Jeremy's not there. He's got other things to do. I'm talking about the executive producer of the show, the main producer of the show, the guys who are the set designers. We're all sitting on this call. I said, guys, I just realized something. And this isn't necessary because it's going to be significant additional expense. But now that I've got this thing broken down, when you ask me what I want the set to look like, the first 4 episodes take place in execution chambers in the basements of buildings. And the last 3 or 4 take place in the frozen tundra of Kolyma in the gulags. If I have one set, I'll take the basement. But if we could do 2, it'd be a much better fit. They said, what are you thinking? I said, okay, for the first set, it needs to be dark. There needs to be Russian martial music, tinny, coming from far down the hall, because they used to blast this stuff at full volume to cover the sound of the gunshot and the screaming, right? I want it to be dark, but I want the light to be extraordinarily hard. I want it to be in your face. It's got to be like you are being interrogated. You have to feel like you are at somebody's mercy in this thing. I want this thing to scare the piss out of people. I said, that's a really cool idea. I said, furthermore, I don't want to do the 50s outfit this time. I did the thin tie thing for when we just shot the Cold War. But this time I said, it's critical. It's critical to the success of this that people understand that I'm not part of this environment, right? I'm not going to have my hair brushed back in the 50s fashion. I'm going to go with the Malibu Einstein on this one. And I'm going to dress in a modern. Be clear that I'm not part of this. I'm just showing it to you. So I said, that's what we want. And they're saying, okay, so we could do the video wall for the background. And then they showed me a couple things where they had like moving maps and stuff. I said, you know what would be really neat, guys? Really, really cool. If every element we present, we have pictures, tons and tons of photos and all the rest of the stuff, it'd be cool if instead of just having it come up digitally, if we had some kind of an analog thing like slides, like every time we showed a new picture, you hear the, because that's what they had at the time. And so now we're starting to riff. Yeah. We could have slide projectors just doing this. And Phil Trick and I know had some experience doing this because when we did planetarium shows, it was nothing but slide projectors, carousel slide projectors. I was up on top of a ladder changing carousels for about a fifth of my life, and opaquing the damn things. Which I don't ever want to think about again. So, and I said, you guys show that map, the map you did on the floor. They said, yeah, we could do we'd probably put you on a digital thing or something and just have you stand on the map. I said, what about this? What if you have the map coming from above me and it's projected down onto the floor, just like a slide projector? You put some fog in that room, and I am casting my shadow over all of this stuff on the ground. I go, man, that's fantastic. I said, yeah, it is actually. It's pretty kind of cool, isn't it? All right, that's the first 4 or 5 episodes. What about the gulag? I said, now if we could swap out all of this brick walls and stuff, because there are practical elements to this set. I said, what I'd like the first one to make you feel terrified, and I want the second set to make you feel cold, because that's what happened. Went from terror to freezing, and I want gray, leaden, low skies. I want howling wind just in the background. I want barbed wire and old wood, and I want this sense that it is unbearably cold. Yeah, man, it sounds great to us. Let's get on it. So somebody writes a check, and it's not me, to these guys, and these guys are making it happen. They asked me for a delivery date, and they said, could you do end of February? I said, virtually positive I can, but I've got some shooting to do. So why don't we make it first week in March? Done. So we shoot on March 6th, something like that. So I've got some writing to finish. But the good news is the scripts are coming out faster and faster and faster. I wrote a third of a script in one setting. I did 4,000 words, 3,000 words, just coming out of me. So we'll be there in time. We're ready. Now, this whole thing started with the argument about Steve Crowder. And all I'm saying is, I can understand why he didn't take the deal, because I didn't take the deal twice. But I don't understand where all this bitterness comes from. I sure as hell don't understand this business about being in the pocket of big tech. I have never once been told by anybody at Daily Wire what I could write about or what I could say or not say. And I know that these guys are fighting a fight to beat them, and I just thought it was just an unfair thing to say. I thought it was just, I couldn't make any sense out of it. People would say, well, Ben Shapiro gave Meta, gave Jeff Zuckerberg $1.5 million. And I thought, that doesn't sound good. Really? He gave him $1.5 million? Yeah. Well, that actually sounds pretty damn outrageous to me. And then I just scratched the surface of this, and what I find is that Ben Shapiro's company, Daily Wire, paid Facebook $1.5 million in advertising money to get the anti-Facebook, anti-big tech message in front of eyeballs that need to see it. Now, if Facebook had written him a check for $1.5 million, that might be interesting. But to say that you're paying an ad company means that you're somehow in their pocket, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. So that's about it for this. There is one final thing that I will add, however, and this needs to be said, even though if only a few thousand people hear it, it needs to be said anyway. So let me add one personal issue to this. Jeremy and I worked together for 4 years on Declaration Entertainment, and out of it came a number of firewalls. My membership paid for everything. That was the only source of income we had. And after we worked together for 3 or 4 years, Jeremy went out, got a chance to direct his first movie called The Arroyo, which I edited. I edited in a room the size of a closet in somebody's house in North Hollywood in August, and it was hot as hell in there. The reason that we parted ways was because I got into that company to make movies, and I wasn't seeing anything that I wanted to do on the list of things that Jeremy wanted to do. I just said, I don't know why I'm here exactly, So we parted ways, and I had to buy my membership back from him because that membership had a dollar value. It was an asset. Was I happy about that? I was not. Did I think it was a little mercenary? At the time, yes, I did. The deals that Jeremy, let me rephrase that, the deals that Daily Wire offered me for all 4 of these historical series are more or less in the same amount of money. Are these generous offers? No. They're not generous offers. Are they fair offers? Yes, they're fair. They're fair, but they're not generous. Are the terms fair but not generous? Yes. Did I think that a friend of mine would give me a little more slack? I did. But this is because I had not really thought about things. One of the pithiest things I ever said was on a talk show, which Jeremy was on. A young girl asked me, why is it that the conservatives why are conservatives so old? And I said, because it takes a while for life to beat the stupid out of you. And life had beaten the stupid out of me. And what I came to realize is that it's not Jeremy Boring's job to argue my side of the contract. That's my job, right? That's my job. And the initial offer is a starting position. Of course, everything in the initial offer is slanted towards Daily Wire. Of course it is. He would be in violation of his fiduciary responsibility to his shareholders and investors if it wasn't. His offer, his initial deal offer, was draconian because it's initial offer. Now, could I have done better than I did? Absolutely. Me negotiating with Jeremy Boring is like a guy with a spitball and a straw going up against an M1 Abrams tank. He is a superb businessman. He is tough as nails, and it's not his fault that I didn't get what I wanted. It's not his job to argue my side of the contract. I didn't have an agent. Agent would have helped, but I didn't have one. Whose fault is that? Mine. Okay? Could I have pushed back more on this? Yes. I needed the money, so I didn't. That's the solid, honest answer. Now we get to the point of points, and this is the thing that I would like everybody to hear more than anything, okay? Because this really is the point of why I brought this up in the first place. Please listen carefully to this. Jeremy made tough deals with me because that was business. Now, a couple months ago, I got into a real financial bucket here at BillWhittle.com. A real financial bucket. And I needed an advance on the thing I'm working on. Astrochronic says he's not my friend. Listen carefully, please. Please listen carefully, because this now is the entire point of everything, okay? You can't listen to what I just said without hearing what I'm about to say. If I had during negotiations, if I had asked Daily Wire and Jeremy for, what was it? For 75% of the total amount of money up front, he would have said no. He would have been right to say no. It's insane to pay more than half up front. It's insane really to pay more than 10, 15, 20% up front. You want the spur of the money to get this crazy artist to get down and get to work. If I'd asked him for 3/4 of the total amount of money up front in negotiations, he would have said no, because that is the business decision he should have made. Now to the point. When I called him, I didn't call him as a businessman. I said, Jeremy, I'm in some trouble here and I need some help. Okay, what's the problem? I said, dude, I'm asking you as a friend. I'm just telling you, I got these tax payments I have to make. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I really don't. Okay, what do you need? I said, well, I need this amount of money. He said, okay. So we did. So they paid me 3/4 of the total amount of money that I was getting paid on this Empire of Terror thing. They paid it up front. They took a risk, because maybe I'll never deliver it. Maybe I'll get hit by a bus. He took a risk, and he did it because he's my friend. You understand the difference? He would not have done it as a businessman, because it's not in his interest to do it as a businessman. And I didn't talk to him about it as a businessman. I talked to him about it as a friend. And as a friend, he said, of course I'll do it. Of course I'll do it. What else? What do you need? If I called Jeremy tomorrow and said, buddy, I've got the mob after me and I need $500,000 or they're going to wipe me out, I'd have a check. He wired me the money. I'd have it in a few hours. If you don't understand this, then nothing makes sense, right? If you don't understand this, then of course Daily Wire looks like predatory company. But it doesn't matter that he gave you the money. You are still under punitive contract, and he can sue the pants off you if you don't produce. Duh, Bill, he's not your friend. Blake, he gave me the money that I asked for when he had no obligation to do it. He did it because he's my friend. And if I had asked him for money out of his own pocket instead of an advance, which I could have done, but I was just too embarrassed, frankly, then he would have done that too. If I told him I needed $500,000 or else I'm going to be wiped out, he would have the money in my bank account by the next day. some people say I don't understand the distinction. I can't understand how you can't understand that, right? He's got a business hat that he is required to wear, and he is so good at the business aspect that he's got the money to do these historical series and all the rest. Because he's a tough-nosed businessman. That's why Daily Wire is so successful. That's why they have the money to pay me and all the rest of it. But if I had asked him as a friend, hey, pal, I'm really in trouble. I need some help. And he said, well, should have negotiated better. Now, if he'd said that, then he would have been the guy that people want to make him into. But it's not what he said. That's not what he said. I didn't sign a paper for that advance. I didn't get a note. He didn't ask me for a note. He didn't ask me for an IOU. He didn't ask me for anything. He just made the money available because he could, because I asked him, and because he's my friend. Now, that's why I think it's unfair. Oh, here we go again. He gave you money that he already agreed to give you, and there was no risk because he could and would have strung you out if somebody didn't produce. All right, look. I asked for an advance because I was too embarrassed to ask for money. I've said it 4 times now. If I called him tomorrow and said I need $500,000, he would give it to me. And I knew this when I asked him. And if you think that this is just him being duplicitous, you don't know him. You're wrong. You're just wrong. Okay? I spent 10 hours a day with that guy 5, 6, 7 days a week for 4 years. I know what's real, and you don't. I was there, and you weren't. I know him, and you don't. So don't tell me when I'm being played. I spent the last hour talking about how I was being played by the contract because I am such a terrible businessman and negotiator. So don't tell me that this isn't really friendship, because it is. All right? I really don't understand it. Blake Jameson, I cut trees and sometimes people give me money for upfront without me asking. Are they my friends? No. Did you sign a contract with the people you cut the trees for? Did you sign a contract? Because I had a contract with him and there was nothing about that in the advance. I am sick and tired of people trying to find the way they best possibly can to turn this guy into a villain. He's not a villain. All right? He's not. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't know what else to say. If you're convinced that the whole thing is just me being stupid, not knowing what friendship is and not knowing what a personal offer is, and I didn't record that conversation, but if you had listened to it, you would have heard that there was no business here. This was, buddy, what do you need? I don't know. Okay. All right, I'll make it happen. You'll have it tomorrow. So that's my take on it. Here we go. So let's have a quick look at some questions at BillWhittle.com, because these have been the people who've been neglected, and they know it. They do it anyway because they're fine people, and because I've made this bet. This is the 4th time I've made this bet. I'm not delivering as much content as I should, and I'm making the bet that when the members see why, they'll think that it was worth it. They thought that it was worth it for Apollo 11 and the Cold War and America's Forgotten Heroes, and I think they'll think this for this. Some people have said, why are we paying you membership money so that you can produce work for Daily Wire? It's like, you're paying me membership money so I can keep the lights on. I could work for Daily Wire out of my bedroom. I have a bunch of things I'm working on, and I am very grateful. So with that said, let's go to the BillWhittle.com forum. And by the way, I know Scott talks about this a lot. I should talk about it a lot more. This website, this BillWhittle.com website for members, has an extraordinarily vibrant and interesting set of personal blogs. If you're a member, you can post stories, and it's just there for everybody to read. It's amazing the quality of the stuff that goes on in there. I wish I had more time to read it. I read as much as I can, and I never cease to be amazed at just how remarkable it is. All right. So Stratosphere Launch questions and more. I'll do my best. 26, 23. All right, here we go. Cody Fett, second time asking. Mr. Whittle, the topic of self-aware AI has been brought up many times before with just about every facet discussed except perhaps the most important one. What drives a man to struggle through hardship and impossibility and all the stumbling blocks of the world to create a life that has the mind of a savant and the heart of a slave? Wow, man. Cody, that is a great question. I'm more worried about not about it having the mind of a slave. I'm more worried about it having the mind of a person that owns slaves. I've had this discussion several times, so I don't mean to cut it short, Cody, but I will basically give you the short form. And the short form is this. Consciousness is biological. Well, it's biological now, but we don't have as soon as we have the technology, I'm not convinced. Well, I'm sorry, this one I have to answer is a $50 super chat. Thank you. From Randy Wallen, I trust you and I believe you. Thanks for your honest take on JB, DW, and all the rest. Maybe I should do a video on this after all. I don't know. I'm ready to take a vote on that. I respect you and the Daily Wire crew. Continue to do prospects together. Thank you for fighting the good fight together. Thank you. That means a lot to me. All right. And for the super chats I missed, I'm sorry. I don't know if they're refundable or if not, then next time just don't buy another super chat. Just put like super chat, unanswered super chat in caps, and I'll try to get to that. So I feel bad about that. So here's my argument about hard AI, self-aware AI. We have the blithe assumption that if we can develop enough neural connections or enough connections, then we can just transplant our consciousness. But the thing that I've not heard anybody talk about ever is how do you account for the fact that virtually every conscious thought we have, including the drive to create AI, that is an emotional motivator. The people that are trying their hardest to create machine intelligence are doing it because the idea dumps endorphins into their biology and makes them feel good. No one's talking about this. This is the entire point, right? When I hear that guy, I can never remember his name, Yvonne or whatever, the guy who looks like, he looks like, like the head Martian in Mars Attacks. When I hear him saying that humans are they're just a chemical algorithm, I listen to him and I say, he has an emotional stake in saying that. It makes him feel good to say that we're nothing but chemical algorithms, because since he believes that, he gets to feel like a god. We're just chemical algorithms, you see, but he and a small group of the smartest people in the world are creating something that's so far beyond us that they really are godlike. He is making emotional statements and emotional decisions because his biology is telling him to do that. He has a objective, he has motives, but those motives and the objective are driven by his biology, and they simply don't even talk about it. My friend Jim is constantly saying, how are they going to? I said, nobody can tell you where memories are in the human brain. No one can understand this. The corpus callosum is orders of magnitude more complex than anything that's on the drawing board. It's just astonishing, really. And this is why I think it's always going to be just 7, 8, 10 years away. It's been 7, 8, 10 years away for 50 years now. What makes you think that if you create this hard AI, People say, well, what if it wants to take over the world? That's a genuine concern. But what if it doesn't want to do anything? What if it's not interested in making faster versions of itself? You see where I'm going with this? They're saying, I did not talk about Project Veritas, but that's going to be the next question. Don't let me forget that. What they're saying is, we want to make a super being, right? So the way we're going to make a super being, our replacement, they're completely open about this. They're saying our job as humans is to simply create this new life form, and then we will cheerfully go extinct because we'll be no match for this wonder that we've created. What if the AI doesn't want to make a smarter computer? What if the AI has no interest in making a smarter computer? What if the AI figures out the whole thing is just a giant circle jerk and says, you know what? I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to run pictures of the Bahamas in my AI mind, and that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the time. How do they know? They don't know. They assume. There's so many assumptions built into their entire prospect that they don't even see it. Well, we'll build one machine, and then that machine, since it's smarter than us, we'll build a next machine that's even smarter than that one. Bingo, Eric Blake again for the win. What if the AI gets bored? And what if it gets bored millions of times faster than human beings get bored, right? AI, we want you to build its successor. Flash, what was the Flash? No, I don't feel like it. How long did you think about this? Oh, AI thought about it. Billions of cycles. Took it well less than a second. This is the entire thing. People who talk about, well, we're going to upload our consciousness to machines and then we'll live forever and we'll have these awesome plastic bodies and we get to fly through space, we won't need to breathe, or we can walk across the ocean because we'll be nuclear powered little robots and everything's going to be awesome, and they're constantly going to be upgraded and we'll just keep moving our consciousness from one to the other. Okay. What happens to your emotions when you end up in a silicon, assuming you can, and I don't think they can, but assuming you could, you find yourself in a silicon matrix now. What happens to your emotions? Your emotions are biological. When you find yourself, you're in the two chairs, right? And here's your smooth plastic AI replacement, right? And it's nuclear powered and it's indestructible and it's got all this incredible brain hardware. And here you are, this nasty, wretched old bag of flesh, and there's a big thing on your head and it's connected by a big tube, and then the wire comes down into the other thing. You're going to transfer your consciousness into this creature, right? Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, you could do it. Now you wake up in this other creature. Do you go, yay? You don't go, yay. Yay, hooray, is an expression of joy, and it is an endorphin dump. You wake up. Let's just grant the case. You wake up. Are you happy? Infidel 42 says you scream from the existential horror. You don't. You don't scream from the existential horror because there is no horror. There's no nothing. You're not terrified. You're not elated. Terrifying and elation are biological activities that occur as a result of your consciousness. It's not even addressed. It's not even on the table. It's not even discussed, right? It is just plain unspeakable narcissism. Jose Contreras says, where's the soul? Yes. Now, there are people out there, especially the people like the ones that are designing this AI, say there's no such thing as a soul. Okay, I can understand the materialist argument for that. But I also understand that there are qualities to human behavior that are not logical. They're not even evolutionarily logical in the sense of the selfish gene logical. People make decisions to do things on a value scale that is so subtle and so universal and almost universally good that you really almost can't explain it without that word soul. It is a sort of a universal substrata of understanding the difference between good and evil, and it's built into us biologically. And by the way, it's not just built into humans biologically. It is not an intellectual construct, right? Mammals take care of their children. There's a great experiment with two monkeys, and they're feeding these monkeys pieces of sliced cucumber. One for you, ding, hits a bell. One for you, ding, hits a bell. One for you, ding, hits a bell. One for you, ding, hits the bell. And then the researchers start giving one of the monkeys strawberries. Ding, strawberry. Ding, cucumber. Ding, strawberry. Ding, cucumber. After the third iteration of this, the monkey getting the cucumber is willing to throw things. He's throwing the cucumbers back at the researcher. Where's my damn strawberries, right? Where's my damn strawberries? Where does the monkey get that idea from? It's an emotional reaction. It's built into the biology of the creature. Fairness, protection. These things are not silicon qualities. And the one thing I thought, frankly, that I've never really thought of is that I haven't heard anybody else really thought of. The argument is that, well, AI is amazing because it's so much faster, right? Millions of times faster. There's no question about that. Right? No question that it's faster. It's not more complicated. We have our signals of our intelligence move much, much more slowly than they do in the world of silicon, but they're also much, 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 much more directly connected. So, Blake says, Blake Johnson says, do monkeys have souls? I've seen turtles and lizards act the same way. Yes, I agree. They act the same way, but they are acting out of a biological imperative. They are doing it for a reason. They are reacting emotionally. When you see that monkey throw that cucumber back at the guy, he's angry. And we understand why he's angry. So, if the silicon mind works millions of times faster and you are able to pull this thing off, which again, I just think is just not even close to being possible, but let's say it is. Wouldn't you wake up in your new body and wouldn't you look out into the world and realize that everything is frozen in place? What do you mean it's frozen in place? Yeah, you're looking around and your mind is thinking a million times faster than it used to. That means you're able to process all of this information a million times faster than a human being. That means that everything is moving a million times more slowly because that's what your consciousness, that's the cycles per second that you're used to. If you're used to 100, let's just say for the sake of the argument, in your little biological body, you can do 100 cycles per second of thinking, right? If you move into a silicone frame that is millions of times faster mechanically, then you'll do that 100 cycles of thinking in a millionth of the time. Then what do? You wait to see if any of these creatures move. You may want to try to move your head, but matter doesn't move that fast, right? You've still got plastic, you've still got servos. I want to turn my head to the right. And maybe a few thousand years later, you could start to see, oh yeah, I guess my head is turning a little bit to the right. I personally think that the major motivation is fear of death. I think that's what's driving it. Road Rider 58 said Star Trek did an episode on this. They did, and you know who else did an episode on this? A show I never talk about on this program, and I will get to on the Stratosphere Studio on Monday, which I will finally be here for after missing it for 3 weeks. But they also did a real good job on this on the Wild Wild West, which is one of the greatest TV shows ever. There's a science fiction story. I don't remember the name of it, but it was great. Short, and basically, it was using transportation like a transporter. You got this giant ship filled with people, and the thing goes through this field. The thing breaks down the thing to individual atoms. Super powerful computers record all of these images, beam it at the speed of light to a star, and then it's manufactured again on the other side. And the people who go through this have to be sedated, right, so that they're not thinking during this process. Well, one guy sneaks on board. He's a stowaway or something, or he didn't take the medicine or something. Everybody else goes to sleep. He pretends to go to sleep, but he's awake because he wants to know what it's like. So he goes through this thing, and then on the 4-year journey or whatever, he lives thousands and thousands of years unable to move. And when he comes out on the other side, he's absolutely bat guano crazy. I just thought that was so fascinating. The idea that you have spent, when I say thousands of years, that's easy to just toss out thousands of years, right? You have sat in a dark room since the pyramids were built. Jesus is halfway to the pyramids. And you sat in a room with nothing to think about for 5,000 years. Of course you'd go nuts. And you can't kill yourself. It's not physically possible, right? You can't. You can't bite your tongue, nothing. You're just stuck. Can't sleep. Maybe you could sleep. Who cares? If you could sleep, you'd try to sleep 16, 18 hours a day. Anyway, that's an interesting problem, but I think these guys are extraordinarily simplistic when they get to this kind of thing. Because I've heard them talk about number of neural connections and all the rest of it. I haven't heard anybody talk about these things. All right, back to the questions. Okay, this one's a long one. I'm gonna try. It's from Chris Taylor. I'm gonna try and get this down here. It's mostly about the stuff we've already talked about, Chris, and I know you got a point here. I don't want to cover it. So most of it is about the stuff that we just spent time talking about. But he's got something here that really needs to be said. He said, "That's why I hope, in caps, even if Daily Wire funds your pet projects, you're still planning to popularize your innovative funding model of pre-funding quality entertainment at cost and making the additional profit off merchandising. I am 100% committed to this." Let me rephrase that. I am 100% committed to the colonies being free of charge. If I'd had to pay for Star Trek, there wouldn't be a Goran sneaking up on me in the background here. I don't know how exactly that would work, which is why this time I'm going in with a producer and we're going to say, here's what we want, and either we get it or we don't. If we don't, then we go to this crowdsourcing method, which is a great method. If, on the other hand, somebody's willing to do everything that I would get through the crowdsourcing method and is willing to write me a check in advance and get started, I would think about taking that. I don't know. But the chosen is the model, right? The chosen is the model. It's, to me, and this may be exactly the kind of thing Crowder's talking about, by the way. The entire Crowder Daily Wire thing really, for me, turned on one sentence where Crowder said there's a better way to do it. And he tried to tell Jeremy that there was a better way to do it. And maybe there is. Maybe Crowder's right. Maybe there is a better way to do it. But Jeremy's not under any obligation to trash his business model that has been so successful on a theory. So, The Chosen, whether you like the show or not, is the story of Jesus, done by a guy who I used to know a lot better, named Dallas Jenkins, because we were all in the mystery organization together back in the day, 10 years ago or so. And he basically went out and said, look, there's never been a story about the life of Jesus that Christians really could get behind, and I want to do it. And this isn't a church movie because I'm a Hollywood filmmaker, and we're going to hire Hollywood filmmakers and writers and lighting and all the rest of it. And he put together a short as kind of a sizzle reel, and he got, I don't remember the number, I want to say $6 or $8 million. So he went out and shot it. And what he came back with was so astonishing that when he went out to raise money for season 2 using essentially the same method, I think he got $35 million. And then he had the discipline and the wisdom to cut it off. He could have kept going to 50, 60 million. He didn't. He said, we need 35 million for the second season. We're there. If you're pleased with what we do with the second season, love to have you join us financing the third. Otherwise, you get Star Citizen, right? If you continue to get money without delivering anything, then you'll just continue to not deliver anything. Megan N for $20 super chat. Thank you. I respect you and the Daily Wire crew. Continue to do projects together. Thank you for fighting the good fight together. Isn't that kind, Megan? People like you make me just not only able to continue this, but proud and happy to continue it. Thank you. It's very kind of you. So that model is there, and that model, as he points out, is I don't want to say it's plan B because it's a really good model. It's plan A. It's plan A prime. It is, I'm not saying it's likely even, let alone, probable, but it's not impossible that everything that I would want out of that crowdfunding can be done without the crowdfunding. And as long as I don't give up anything, then I don't have any problem with that. Now, if it turns out that means, this thing's going to live behind a firewall and it's going to be seen by, 400,000 people instead of 4 million or 40 million or whatever, I think at that point I would say, I just don't know if this is going to do it, buddy. And then we'll go out and get the money somewhere else. If, on the other hand, he says, I'm a Star Trek fan too. Let's make a Star Trek. What do you want? I want this, 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 and this. Okay, done. Then I probably would take it. But plan A is still plan A. This G.K. Masterson has a question. Offers to help me again with the stuff that I'm really horrible at, and I appreciate it. I'm just so busy, but thank you. I know I keep putting you off, and I'm a horrible person for doing that, but I continue to appreciate the offers. Second point is, I know you're pretty married to the idea of asking Daily Wire to help with the colonies. I'm actually not married to the idea. In fact, I was fully divorced from the idea. I had written the idea off, absolutely written it off. We'd had preliminary discussions. I didn't like the sound of it. Okay? I didn't like the sound of it. So I said no, because I didn't like it. But my producer friend said, well, that was an initial offer. It wasn't a final offer. Did you tell him what you want? I said, no. Then why don't we try telling him what we want? And if he says yes, then you're golden. If he says no, then we go back to what we were going to do in the first place. So that's actually genius. Why didn't I think of that? Because I'm not a businessman, that's why. Megan N says, thank you for that one. I got that one. I think there's so many. Randy Wallen, I trust you and believe you. Thank you for your honest take on JBDW and the rest. And I know I've answered some of these. Radzilla says, Stevens claims this about young creators. Not one young creator thinks I'm heading to the DW to get a lucrative contract. All I have to say about young creators is I was a young creator. Of course, I was 49. But in terms of experience, I was a nobody. I took the deal. I was a wage slave for 3 years. I did some great work. I got paid to do what I wanted to do, and I came out of it famous. That was my experience. And by the way, it was Stephen's experience too. He worked at PJTV as a wage slave. I don't know the details of his deal, and he was well known before then, but he was better known afterwards. I am virtually positive, not 100% positive, but I'm virtually sure that the term Louder with Crowder came out at PJTV, although again, I may be wrong about that, so don't hold me to that. In any event, if somebody said, wow, should I take this job at Daily Wire? Yes. I don't think you want to try to monetize this thing. That's what I've been trying to do. It's not easy. But when I was given a chance to work for a paycheck, I turned it down. When I was given a different chance to work for a paycheck, I took it. That's how adults go through life, I think. And I never took it personally. Well, I did it first, but then the life beat the stupid out of me. Okay, let's see, back again we go. So again, I am not married to taking the colonies to Daily Wire. I was completely, absolutely written that off. And as far as I'm concerned emotionally, I have still written it off. But the argument is a sound argument. And this is because the guy I'm talking about is in fact a businessman. And he brings up a point that didn't occur to me. Why don't you ask for what you want? And if you get it, golden. And if you don't, turn it down. Why turn it down before you told him what you wanted? Why did you turn it down just based on what his initial offer was? Why didn't you negotiate it? I never thought of that. That's a damn good idea. Jay, hey. So, anyway. Another green flash. Okay, so we're hopefully got more or less got that covered. So the plan is to crowdsource the thing. If there's a shortcut, grand. If not, then we know what we're going to do and how to do it. Road Rider says, the question to you, that's you, Bill, not me. What drives one story or topic for Right Angle to the top of your list? Pause, look thoughtfully into the camera, and answer this question before moving on to my follow-up. End of quote. Repeat the line. I usually pick my right angle topic while I'm eating breakfast before we shoot on Tuesday morning. I get almost all of them from Instapundit. Oh, I got to remember to talk about something that's kind of cool. But I meant to actually lead with this. Hang on. This person. And there was another topic that was just real hot that I said I wanted to come back to. Anyway, let me just get to this. I just looked for something that's quirky. And honestly, for years there, it was either talking about the Victrola or talking about the election. And it came to a point where it's like, okay, Right Angle, no one's ever watched Right Angle 2 or 3 times, right? And I'm now, I've said this all during the evening, I am coasting on the generosity and the kindness of our members who continue to stay members while my writing time goes into producing something that I think is going to be historic and that could not be made otherwise. And I think most of my members get that. Right Angle is a fun take on what's going on right now. So I just go to Instapundit and I find a story that looks interesting to me or quirky or fun or whatever, and I just pick it. And in terms of the mileage that we get out of it, it's a very, very good investment. Same with Virtue Signal. But when I get these things delivered, and believe it or not, we're getting closer. They're coming out. Each one's coming out faster than the last. I think I can do a firewall about the stuff I talked earlier about tonight, how to argue with the left. And I think I really want to do that Don't Be an Idiot series because I think lack of education is the number one risk to the country right now. Follow-up question to Mr. Virtual President. Brandon came to our hamlet last week to survey the damage from the bomb cyclone atmospheric river. About 30 people showed up, mostly staff and local dignitaries, to see him speak. He blamed it all on climate change. What a shock. The follow-up question is, do you know why 2 Ospreys preceded the flight of the Marine One to a location? 2 came over our business just minutes before the 2 big helicopters which carried the Prez and presumably Governor Hairgel. I have seen video of Osprey look like it was landing in a look like a picnic yard, and those Ospreys, man, I don't know, they are producing an awful lot of downwash. Beaker says advanced units. We didn't used to have those before. I don't know if the Secret Service has determined that President Brandon is less popular than people say. I don't know. I did not know that was the case. I'm not surprised that it's the case. And I'm also a little concerned about the precedent. Not the president, the precedent. I don't much like the idea of here comes the President of the United States, but first the Praetorian Guard is going to arrive to secure the premises. I don't like that at all. And that kind of feels like that to me. There was a question, if somebody can remember, anybody remember what it was? I said, don't let that go. It was a topic that was real hot. If somebody could be kind enough to post it again, I'm going to scroll. I can't find it. But I said something a while ago, and I said, my God, don't let me forget that. And of course, I forgot it. Veritas. Thank you. Yeah, this one's coming from Bill. I got a text yesterday from my associate in this fight, and one of the finest people I know, James O'Keefe, texted me and said, hey, Bill, we got something really something, and it may be the most important stuff we ever got. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but he sent me some outtakes of it. And what it is, again, I haven't seen it, is he managed to get Pfizer, high-level Pfizer person saying that they are working on mutating the unspecified virus of unknown origin in order to make it more contagious and different enough so that they can continue to sell vaccines. This is a Pfizer executive saying that. I think that was yesterday. Today I got another one from him saying he was physically assaulted by a high-level Pfizer person and that he was locked in a room by this high-level Pfizer person. And Mobile Moto says that confrontation was unhinged. I haven't seen that. So I will look at them both. Beaker saying, I need to look at it. The guy they caught is freaking out. Likely he thinks they will Clinton side him. Yeah. All right. So I wrote James back and said, I'm more proud of you than I ever have been. I've been proud of you from the beginning. Just proud to know you. Charges need to be brought against these people. And one of those charges, among many, needs to be first-degree murder. First-degree murder. This is why I've said this so many times. If you can control the Justice Department, you control society. That's the only thing you have to get. If you get the Justice Department, then it doesn't matter whether you break the law or not. Doesn't matter if you break the law in front of everybody, if you do it on videotape, if the videotape goes out and somebody's in a cell and then gone out for 13 minutes, come back, he hung himself. It doesn't matter how obvious the evidence is. If you don't have a Justice Department that is independent, if you've got a Justice Department that will prosecute cases that shouldn't be prosecuted, make raids that are not justified, but more importantly, not investigate or prosecute cases that are inconvenient for them, then it doesn't matter. However, P7 2017 says, oh, but it's absolutely not gain of function. It's just all the elements of gain of function, but that's totally not that. Yeah, exactly. The fact that this guy, again, I haven't seen it, is acting apparently off the hook is because this is damning stuff. And apparently this is not a guy who's working in the mailroom. This is the only form of evidence that the public will believe. And that's why the media is going to sit on this one hard. Because when you see somebody speaking on without knowing he's being recorded, you get then it really is a question of what your lying ears and lying eyes are telling you, right? So, Mobile Moto said, oh, his career is over. Yeah, I suspect his career is over, but more importantly, now we're back to the Justice Department. If we had a real Justice Department, we would talk to this guy and we would say, you are going to go away for a long time. However, if you help us, we can make sure you go away for less of a long time. Craig 1974 says, if Gavin Newsom gets the nomination for POTUS, we are screwed. Well, I don't know if Gavin Newsom could beat just Ron DeSantis just to take Mr. Trump off the table just for the heck of it. I will say that I've seen them both in action. DeSantis will eat Newsom for lunch. Whether that's enough to overcome, other issues, I don't know. But if I was Ron DeSantis, I'd be praying for Gavin Newsom because they are absolute mirror images of each other. Absolute. Jeff Newcomb says he wasn't scared that he'd lose his job. He was scared because he works for the mob and he's saying, yeah, precisely. Sacred Order of Knightly Valor with a super chat saying the moral mediocrity of the Pfizer exec is astounding. You know, of all of this stuff, all of these revelations that seemed impossible to me, just absolutely bonkers, insane conspiracy theories, they've all turned out to be true. And virtually all of them, hang on to that thought there, Blake. Virtually all of them are driven by money. And this is why I think we have such a hard time really fighting these people. Because most decent people, and that's the kind of people this show attracts, cannot actually emotionally, we can believe it in our head, but in our hearts, we cannot believe it possible for somebody who would be willing to murder millions of people for money. It's just not conceivable to me. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and I'm not saying I'm not smart enough to know that with enough evidence you can prove it happened. I just simply can't conceive of it. Nick Napper says, I can. Well, I tend to be more naive than a lot of people. But if it turns out that this is the case, then that is first-degree murder. You know what I'd be really interested in? I'm not going to say this is ever going to happen. But what I'm really interested in, just out of curiosity, is I would like to take that guy and say, okay, here's a hypodermic needle that contains the Pfizer vaccine. Roll up your sleeve. I'd be very, very, very curious to see. Thank you, Jeffrey. Very curious to see what his reaction would be if we had somebody independent, right? Just saying, yeah, we just grabbed a nurse from a hospital, and this is the Pfizer vaccine. Roll up your sleeve. I'd be very, very interested in knowing what they would do. Blake Jameson, Bill, can you not put yourself in any human shoes by empathy? I can inhabit any point on the human spectrum and give you reasons as to why I'm a good person is an invalid assertion. I don't know if you're trying to say that I'm claiming I'm a good person, that's why I can't understand it. I don't consider the fact that I don't understand that I can't get my head around their motives. I don't consider that to be a virtue of mine. I consider it to be a vice. I consider it to be a character flaw of mine. That's not something I'm proud of. It's something I should be working on because it's obvious. It's so repellent and so, not just repellent, it's just so alien to my way of thinking that I just keep constantly find myself falling back on, no, it can't be. Well, yeah, it can be. I have broken through on a lot of these things. I'm not on the leading edge of the curve, but I'm not on the trailing edge of the curve either. So back to BillWhittle.com. Oh, hey, what do you know? Here's a question about the same thing. That's funny. Troy Stevens, directed evolution at Pfizer. Bill, what do you make of the latest Project Veritas drop? I wish I'd read this before. I said I couldn't remember what I was talking about. Which a young-looking Pfizer employee appears to admit that they're actively mutating SARS-CoV-2 to anticipate and prepare vaccines for future strains. Is it credible? I wouldn't put it past Pfizer to take such irresponsible risks, but the admission is so brazen, and this is supposed research director looks so young, I kind of wonder if this is what it seems. I'll tell you something. And Sacred Order of Knightly Valor with his trooper says the guy confessed just to impress a grinder date. That'll do it. You know, that'll do it. To impress a grinder date. Back in the middle of the grinder, he's gay apparently. Back in the middle of the Iraq War. Sacred Order of Knightly Valor wants to know if the Pfizer executive, is he a queer? Well, apparently he is a queer. He talks like a queer. So back during the Iraq War, I want to say it was around 2006 or 7, and things were not going well. Um, Along comes this guy, a warrior poet, who said, we either we either go big or we go home. And he made the case for the surge, and they did the surge, and the surge worked. The last 6 months of Bush's administration, I don't think anybody was killed in Iraq. 4 months, something like that. So the surge worked, and it worked because the guy who designed it understood the culture he was dealing with. And his name was David Petraeus. And I thought the world of him. I thought the world of him. I still do. I still do think the world of him. But when I found out that, and when it went uncontested, that David Petraeus would text the reporter who originally followed him for a book, some good-looking young woman, when I found out that he was texting her 50, 60 times a day because he was so infatuated and smitten, that I began to realize everybody's got a weakness, and this was his. I could not believe that a person with that level of intellect and discipline could be so weak and stupid. But he was. So that inclines me to believe that this Pfizer guy is exactly what he says he is. And much more to the point, because that's just speculation. James O'Keefe is the most incorruptibly honest person I've ever met. And James O'Keefe understands the most important thing about the work he's doing, and that is, if he makes an accusation, he had better be prepared to provide a lot of receipts, because the world is gunning for him. So I don't see how James O'Keefe would release this video unless James O'Keefe had it nailed down, airtight, locked, sealed, signed, and delivered that this guy is who he says he was. P7 2017 says I dumped a fair number of $20 super chats. I don't know if he's talking about me, but in any event, I feel terrible about missing the super chats. Mobile Moto for super chat says, hey Bill, I've lost out on a contract job for the first time this week because I didn't have a vaccination record. $85 an hour for at least 5 months. I sure hope I'm wrong, but that may be one of the best bad things that ever happened to you. Yeah, I think it's real, and I remember when somebody I'm not going to get into that. I think it's real. I think that for some reason that I can't quite explain, although I know it's part of the cycle of history, there comes a point where what this is, oh, thank you, P7. This is the resurgence of the aristocrat gene that had been suppressed quite effectively for the last 250 years. Almost thought maybe we actually might have knocked it out of the gene pool. But as we get more and more comfortable, we become less and less vigilant, and that, I was almost said it's a recessive gene. We're the ones with the recessive gene. That ability to want to control people or make money off of them or both, and damn the consequences, not care the slightest bit whether people die or bankrupted or whatever. It's becoming more and more common because we are not suppressing it. Go back to what I just said about the Department of Justice, right? We're not suppressing it. If we were punishing it, then we wouldn't see so much of it. If these people were going to jail, then Pfizer wouldn't be taking these kind of risks. But if what James O'Keefe said happened, and I certainly believe that is the case, then the reason that they are becoming so brazen and contemplating things that maybe they would not even have contemplated 50, 40, 30 years ago. Because 50, 30 years ago, somebody at Pfizer would have said, you know what, we could kind of mess around with this and make a lot more money. Somebody would have said to him, and if we did that, we'd get the electric chair. Are you out of your mind? When you don't enforce the law for what, Eric Holder, so 2008, that's, 15 years, then people's proclivity for evil and greed is let out of the box. We no longer have a deterrent to this. I was talking after I was finished with the speech on Tuesday night, just talking to a couple of people outside, and one of them was talking about how he was in a courtroom and they brought in all these extras, and I said, I was in debate. Debate was the single most important class in my life. It really taught me how to think, and I said, what I learned in debate in 2 different seasons with 2 different topics was that any point you want to make, you can find 50 experts who back you, and you can find another 50 experts who say absolute opposite, that there is no subject on earth that you cannot line up experts for or against. That's when you have to learn how to start thinking and starting to weigh which one of these people is most credible and why. And I said our topic was prison reform, and one of the most common cases in my senior year in debate, when we won the second state in Florida, one of the most common cases was death penalty cases, because the whole you can't just talk about anything. You got to keep it confined, or else you can't prepare for every single argument in the universe. So our topic for the first year was energy, and our topic for the second year was prison reform. And one of the most popular cases out there was a case that affirmative team would bring, saying we need to abolish the death penalty, which had been reinstated not long before when I was a senior in '77. That's for Gary Gilmore, so I think it was a hot topic then, because it had been banned for a long time, and then it just come back. There were tons of experts who said that the death penalty does deter murderers. And there were tons of other experts who say the death penalty does not deter murderers. And you're kind of stuck there. And I said, my partner was an evidence maniac. He was first affirmative and first negative. He was the sledgehammer of evidence, and I was the rhetorical, whipped cream. But when I was dealing with that case, I said, well, first of all, we can agree that it deters the person who committed the murder, right? I don't know what the murder recidivism rate is, but I do know that when I went back to the University of Florida for the second time, I got there shortly after a guy had gotten out and killed 5 students over the course of 3 or 4 days and decorated their apartments with their entrails. And that guy had killed his father, and if he'd gotten the death penalty for that, those 5 kids would be alive today. So certainly would have deterred him. But Astrochronic says the death penalty doesn't deter. It's not about a deterrent. And yet, when I mentioned this last night, and Blake Jameson saying the same thing, there's no way that the death penalty deters a person in the state of mind that would commit a murder to begin with. It sounds like a reasonable statement, but let me add an au contraire. The person I was talking to was a lawyer. He says, I could give you 5 cases where we ended up prosecuting people for murder who openly said in court that they waited to murder somebody in this state because in this state there's no death penalty. That's a pretty compelling argument for me. It's an open question. You can be on both sides of the issue. My personal vote on this, since it came up, is that the death penalty is so enormously physically, viscerally repugnant that it does have the ability to focus somebody's mind. Astrochronic says see, once you decide to kill somebody, they're not deterred. They're simply removed. I think it deters people. Some people say they're stone cold murders. Here's the thing about the thing about the death penalty is, it's kind of like gun ownership. We can say that the murderers that we've caught and who are in prison who get the death penalty would not have been deterred by the death penalty, and maybe you're right about that. But what we're not counting is the number of people that didn't commit the crimes in the first place because they were deterred by the death penalty. See? That's one of the things that debate taught me how to do, was not only look at the hits, but look at the misses. So if you, and I know you're not saying this, but just for the sake of the argument, let's say that every single murderer that we caught and convicted said, no, the death penalty wouldn't have deterred me. Okay, that's a strong data point saying that it's not a deterrent. However, what we don't have there is, we don't have the number of people that might have committed murder and didn't because of the death penalty. Now, that number might be 0, or it might be a lot bigger. We don't know. So a lot of times you have to count the misses as well as the hits, right? So, there's that. I'll do 1 or 2 more, and then I think I'm going. I've still got a lot more writing to do. Broke college student. Hey, broke college student. One of the more recent superstars of the chat here, who I haven't seen in a little bit anyway. Greetings, Bill. I got a job and I am now a paying member. Now that is the greatest compliment of all, because we have a number of people that cancel on a regular basis and they just say, look, it's just financially, we just can't handle it. Those people have my enormous gratitude and thanks and deepest respect. And for somebody who just got a job and spending some of that money on being a paying member is enormously important to me. And thank you. Thank you very much. What do you think of the classiness of men's and women's appearance? I was recently in college. It was hard to find a woman who was not wearing sweatpants, but not also dressed provocatively like a horny sorority girl. An attire that she could look conservatively beautiful in, but not hot, if that makes any sense. Yes. It's a free country and they can do what they like, but it seems to be less than ideal setup. It seems like they do not respect themselves or others. Any thoughts? Of course, that goes for men too, but I prefer for my men not to wear dresses. You know what? This is such a good topic. I'm going to end with this one. I've been listening to a lot of this stuff. I don't even know where to start this. TikTok is interesting because TikTok is a direct channel, not only from Gen Z, but TikTok is a diary, right? It's all it is. It's not all it is, but the TikToks where people are talking about things that are important to them, it's a diary, and they think it's going to get them some followers. In some cases, it does. So people will say things to their little iPhones in the way that they would write a diary entry. So there's a kind of honesty there, which once again reminds me about the person who I needed to talk about tonight, and I will. So let me just hang on. I don't want to forget this. Let me just get it. Nobody move. Everybody stay calm. No quick motions. That's the main thing. It's just nice, slow motions. Give me 1 second so I can find this, and then we will sort it out here. Give me a second. Hey, look, there I am on my own live stream. Hooray! This is my new favorite YouTube channel. Yeah. Okay. I'll come back to this. So, what is showing up on TikTok? I mentioned this before. Women are hitting their 40s. This is not the issue I want to talk about. Women are hitting their 40s, and they find themselves with great jobs and great houses and making a lot of money, and they're their own woman. They don't need a man and all the rest of the stuff. They come home. There's nobody at home. The apartment's empty. They've got a cat. There's no husband. There's no kids. And it's not like they need a man in terms of like, I need a man in order to pay my bills. It's just they find their life to be very hollow, and they realize that feminism lied to them. Okay, those are people in their 40s now. I'm talking about people much younger than that. What we're seeing out there on the bleeding edge of Gen Z commentary on TikTok is that young women, are getting very frustrated at how rapidly they're being ghosted. They're completely baffled, angry, shocked, and mostly mystified about why they meet men that they like. They sleep with them on the first date or the second. They exchange all kinds of, they sext each other back and forth. They all got pictures of their naked bodies back and forth, before they even meet each other. And sometimes they text each other for 6 months before they finally go out. But what young women are starting to complain about is they don't know why men aren't sticking around. Because they'll go through, they're proud of their body count. They think that makes them liberated, right? So a guy can say, I've slept with 100 women. Well, that guy's a stud. A woman says, I've slept with 100 men. She's a slut. And people say that's not fair. Well, on one level, it isn't fair. But on another level, it is fair. Because the biology of the matter is that sexual relations produce very different outcomes. For a male, the consequences are zero. Now, if he's going to start a family, then the consequences are very high. But essentially, they're zero. A woman gets pregnant, and now she's got a whole set of problems that the male doesn't have, right? And that's why men are wired to have sex with as many women as possible, and women are wired to attract and hold on to the highest status male they can. Now, in a modern society, and with a safety net, and we're not doing physical labor, and no one has to go out and shoot the wolves or chop the wood, all of these things that guided people into these two kind of appropriate roles for their biology, a lot of those things are gone. So everybody's messing around with it. So women don't know why they're getting ghosted. And what the answer is turning out to be from young men who figured it out is women determine whether or not there's going to be sex between two people, but men determine whether or not they're going to be married. And when women become more and more promiscuous, they are lowering their value in the eyes of men. She belongs to the streets. And they don't know what to do about this. They're quite confused about it. They don't get it. Well, that's because they don't understand male psychology. See, they want to be like men. They think that there's so much of this, I want to be a soldier, I want to kick ass, I want to be tough, I don't need a man, I got my own house, and I'm going to sleep with as many guys as I want to. Okay, that's your business, rock on. But they don't get control over what the men want. And the men don't want women that have slept with 100 guys. And furthermore, men, and this is the thing that amazes Gen Z women because it's so contrary to everything they've been taught. Well, everything they've been taught's a lie. They don't understand that men don't give a damn about whether you've got a great job, that men don't give a damn about how much money you make. Men don't give a damn about any of that stuff. They want to protect and provide, and they want somebody soft and pleasant. That doesn't mean they're sheep. It doesn't mean they're pushovers. It doesn't mean they're weak. It just means that I'm not in the mood to listen to somebody bitch at me all day about. I can get that somewhere else. So now we're getting into a new category of guys. I'll screw it up, but I think they're calling them either visa guys or passport guys or something. More and more men are looking overseas for wives because they're not polluted by this modern feminist idea that men are just garbage and sleep with as many of them as you want till all of a sudden you find the one you want. And at that point, then all of a sudden you're just pure as the driven snow. Doesn't work that way. And social media means that everybody knows it. So when these women go out on these Tinder dates and they swipe right, and then somebody calls them at 3 a.m. and say, want to come over? And they say, sure. Yes, they're living the liberated life that they've always been told was what they want from feminists. What they didn't realize and what they weren't told is every time you do that, your value goes down. You are lowering your stock. You're Odin's men, JT said, you're just Tinder sauce. It's a great term, right? Tinder sauce. Men don't want the things that feminists have told women that men want. In fact, we want pretty much the opposite of that. We don't need two providers. We don't need two tough-minded people. We need a tough-minded person, and we need a sensitive, loving person. And these two together make a remarkable team. But if you have two people who are sensitive and loving, you've got mush. If you've got two people who are tough-nosed, hard-driving business people, you've got, rocks. So they are waking up to this, and they're not very happy about it, and they're not happy about the fact that men are going elsewhere, and they're starting to panic, is what I'm seeing. They're actually starting to panic, and this is another case of reality catching up. And the only way to convince people that socialism sucks is to give it to them. The only way to convince people that these sex roles are interchangeable is to give it to them, and then they realize, okay. Our friend Clay, hey Clay, says, hey, every girl I've been attracted to in the last 5 years have all been Christian, wholesome girls. They're so hard to find. They're hard to find. They're hard to get. And you value something proportionately to the amount of effort it takes you to achieve that objective. The easier something is, the less you value it. That's why in the 50s and 60s, they said, oh, she's easy. It's not a compliment, right? Yes, women they don't have to be virgins, but women who are wholesome, who value their reputation, who want a serious, committed, emotional relationship before they start having sexual relations, those are high-value women. And the part that's really amazing is if you listen to these Gen Zers, you look at some of these women, these people are 4s or 5s on a scale of 1 to 10. You can ask any one of these young, idiotic women, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm a 10. 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 Look at me. I'm a 10. I'm a 10. You're not even a 5. I'm a 10. I'm a 10. I'm a 10. Really? Well, what is it that you want in a man? Well, I want a man who's 6'4", and he can't be any older than $32,000. 32 years old, minimum income $500,000. Oh, so you want a 10? Yeah. What makes you think that a man like that would be interested in you? What do you mean? Why would a guy who's 6'4", $500,000 a year, handsome, 6-pack, gorgeous, capable, brave, honest, doesn't cheat? This is what you say you want. You're not going to settle for less. Why would that guy be interested in you? What do you mean? You give yourself away on a daily basis. You have no personality. You've got no education. You've got nothing to say. You don't contribute anything. You don't contribute any money. You don't contribute any expertise. You don't have any unique perspectives. You're not interesting to talk to. You're just a vain, stupid little person. What makes you think this person? That's exactly right. P7 2017, this is the term that they're using now. What are you bringing to the table? These young women have been taught all I bring to the table is I'm just a hot chick. Some of them are hot, some of them are not, but they seem to think that's all they need. I'm going to have a guy pay all my bills and I just get to sit home. And by the way, I might go out and have one of those girl summer kind of things. So if I go away for a couple of weeks, screw 7 or 8 guys, then he'll just have to live with that and so on. That's delusional. And that's why ultimately, I'm optimistic about the future. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but they cannot get around this no matter how. They cannot argue themselves out of reality. They can't. There's an entire body acceptance movement out there that says that fat people are saying, you need to date me. You should have to date me because if not, you're transphobic. I'm sorry, you're fat phobic. That would make you a bad person. I don't give a damn what you think about me. Yeah. Trans people say you have to date. If you're a heterosexual man, you have to date a biological male who may or may not have had the surgery but declares himself as a woman. You are required to date that person or else you're a bad person. You can say what you want to about that, and you can make it even a crime if you want to, but you're not going to get people to do that. It's not going to happen. You have put yourself in a position from which there is no escape. That's what the trans movement is doing to people. It's telling them, the people pushing it are telling them, if you're a man and you declare yourself to be a woman, then you get to have men as a woman. Not going to happen. Ever. It's not ever, ever, ever going to happen. And they're starting to realize that. This whole thing is going to be a catastrophe. We're on the bleeding edge of it already. And among the many, many things that this trans movement is doing is it's making them sterile, which is one of the reasons why it's being pushed so hard. It's making them sterile, it's making them victims, and it's making them angry. It's a trifecta for the left, right? So this is it. And I watch Odin's Men a lot, and JT says, you have to respect the female penis. That's what we're being told today. And you see the 17-year-old girl who was in a gym, in the locker room at a gym, and a guy comes out of the shower completely naked. He hasn't had any surgery. He's wearing a wig and some eyeshadow. He probably took the wig off for the shower. And she says to the people at the front desk, not only am I intimidated and horrified by this, but my 5-year-old little sister comes here. What the hell is she going to do if she's confronted with this? And they say, ooh, this one's a little touchy, because it's in California, of course. The police come, not really much we can do. Okay, all right, Gavin, these are your laws. These are your state laws in California. And this is what it's going to take to smack the stupid out of people. This stuff is going to have to get worse before it gets better. Now, I told you I had a new favorite YouTube person, and I do, and by happy coincidence in terms of the segue, it's a perfect segue for this. It'll be the last thing I talk about today. Sorry if I didn't get to your questions as usual. However, this has become my new favorite YouTube channel, and some of you will be surprised by this, and some of you won't. I was surprised, honestly. My new favorite YouTube channel is a channel. It's got 46,000 subscribers now. It's called The Offensive Tranny. It's called and I'll put a link to it in the description. And by the way, I'm going to have to edit this thing tomorrow, so you won't see it up tomorrow night or tonight, but I will get it up there. It's called The Offensive Tranny. Why am I so completely fascinated by this person? Well, this person, Marcus, is a biological woman who had the top surgery, if I understand correctly, did not have the bottom surgery, has done a lot of the hormones, spent 6 or 7 years, and is now living as a man. But here's what's so astonishing about this channel. This transsexual woman to man says, listen, I am a biological woman. I am living my life looking like a man, but I'm not a man. I never will be. I never can be. I'm a biological woman. I am more comfortable passing, but it was 6 or 7 years before I got to the point where I felt like people were believing me as a man. And I look at the guy. He looks like kind of a soft guy. And then when I hear him talk, I realize, yeah, he's also a girl. But the point is that the reason I'm so completely fascinated by this person's channel is because they are openly saying everything that both sides know to be true. He comes right out and says it. I am a biological woman. Any test would prove that. Me dressing like a man and taking hormones and getting a male haircut and wearing men's clothes, that's fine, and it allows me to live my life in a way that makes me more comfortable, but I'm not enforcing this on anybody, and the idea of enforcing it on somebody is just horrible. I didn't use men's restrooms until I looked enough like a man so nobody asked me any questions about it. Zach's got it. They are intellectually honest. They are speaking the truth. And this guy goes after the trans movement like nobody I have ever seen. He goes after people like Dylan Mulvaney, and he basically just says, Dylan Mulvaney is not a transsexual because real transsexuals don't have a cartoon image of what the opposite sex is like. Real male to female transsexuals don't do the whole, thing because that's not real. That's That's theater, that's play, that's makeup. They're not real transsexuals. He said real transsexuals, you cannot, hopefully, tell. And they don't want to be gotten wrong. They don't want somebody to say you're really a man. They're not even going to go out in public until they can convince people, because that's the whole idea. They don't want to be seen as men who are accessing women's stuff. They want to live the other side. And I keep wanting to say this guy, and I'm going to say this guy because I respect this guy. I respect him because he's honest, right? This transsexual man, I'm going to call him that out of respect, right? And the thing about this guy or girl on the what is it? Did I say the offensive tranny? The thing about it is, if I said this girl, this person wouldn't have a problem with that. Yes, of course I'm a girl. I was a biological woman. I'm going to call this person a guy because they didn't force me to call him a guy. He has gone after every single one of these tropes that the transsexual movement is pushing, and he's getting a lot of heat for it. He's getting a lot of death threats. I keep referring to him as he because, to me, there's an honesty about this person, right? They are champions of the conservative view on all of this stuff. They're saying all of this stuff is grooming. This person is saying that all the transsexual activists are just nuts, and they're doing it out of vanity, and he's calling them out on all of this stuff. And he interviews, or rather he comments on videos that are put out by the trans activists rather than the real transsexuals. And this person's take on them is priceless. It's priceless. He'll be watching this, and he'll see one of these guys put on a dress, right? He's still a beard, and all this other, and this guy will say something. He'll just he's got a lot of feminine attributes because he's a woman. And I'm not trying to say that this guy or this woman or this person is really a guy. The reason I like their channel is because they're the first person to say, no, of course I'm not really a man. Of course I'm not. Let's not be idiotic here. It's called the offensive tranny. It's just so good. It's so good. I actually would like to interview this person very much. I'm a little reluctant to do it because I know that there'd be some of my members who would think I am either supporting this or encouraging it or advocating for it or tolerating it. I am, I guess I'm doing all of those things because I'm minding my own business. And the reason I like listening to this person is because this person is living proof that you can be civil in society and not be a complete jerk. Just, yes, this person respects other people enough to not make them uncomfortable. They're minding their own business. That's all I want. I just want to live in a society where people mind their own business. It's not a large demand, right? And furthermore, this channel, well, for example, this channel reviewed Matt Walsh's What Is a Woman? He reviewed the movie. And he spent 90% of the movie, 100% on Matt's side, talking about precisely how evil and how narcissistic and how stupid and most of all how damaging these activists who can't, what is a woman? I can't possibly tell you that. I can't possibly say what a woman is. And then the offensive trainer will come on, well, let me help you. A woman is a person with 2 X chromosomes. They have female reproductive organs. They have uterus, vagina, they have all that other stuff, ovaries and so on. That's what a woman is. I'm one of them. I pass as a man. I've had some surgery, but there's no question I'm a woman. You hear this, it's like such a breath of fresh air. So anyway, reviewed Matt's case. Went 95% of the movie with Matt Walsh, 100% of the way saying these people are nuts, they're lunatics, they're destructive, they're pedophiles. She has gone on again and again and again with a great deal of passion about just how destructive these puberty blockers are. Got into the kind of details I didn't know about, saying if you give a young male child these puberty blockers, here's what's going to happen to that child, right? Fantastic. And the 5 or 10% of the video reviewing What is a Woman that the offensive tranny disagreed with was he said, I do think that he missed an opportunity to talk to not me, but someone like me. Because there are transsexuals out there who are living perfectly happy lives, who are not in a state of denial, who are not demanding that you agree with their own mental delusions. He said it would have been nice to see a few examples of what real transsexual people are instead of what these lunatics are. Other than that, he's 100% right. I binge watched when I was on the trip. I must have watched, I don't know. I bet I watched 15 of them in a row. I would really like to interview this person very much, because what this person is doing is constantly attacking the left, woke. Clearly, she used to be one of them and still probably considers herself a liberal. But I'll read it to you. I just saw this on the way home. This is quite moving. Actually, give me a second. Gotta find it. Oh gosh, it's worth the wait. It's worth the wait. I'll tell you. When I go looking for things on the internet, and when I'm drinking a glass of water, when I'm speaking, time slows to a crawl. It feels like it takes me 60 years to get this stuff. I'm trying to scroll back to see this one particular, because it wasn't a video. If it was a video, I could find it right away. Where is that post? It's worth the wait if I can find it, because it's just so honest. I'll give it just a little bit longer, and then I'll probably call it a day here on this one. So maybe it's not under the videos. It's really quite good. Shorts, home, maybe in our home. It's one of those posts that's not a video. It's like a statement post, and I can't figure out where to find it. All right, I'm gonna give it one more quick second, and if I don't find it, here it is. It's a picture of this person, topless. This individual's had their breasts removed and is wearing a very boyish haircut, got glasses, a little bit of a mustache. If I'd seen this person on the street, I would say male. That's why I keep saying him. When this person talks, it's funny because they don't sound like a gay male. Because gay men accentuate the woman, gay men over accentuate feminine behaviors in order to increase the contrast between other men. This person does just the opposite. This person tries to minimize it. This person wants to be seen as a man, wants to live life as a man. So they're doing as best they can. And frankly, this guy is manned up in a way most people never will. So here's this post that I saw yesterday. It's from 8 days ago. It's a written post. Some people online want me dead. I've received multiple threats over the years, and it's all because of the things I say, : people without gender dysphoria shouldn't receive a medical transition. This is the one thing he says again and again and again. Trans surgery and all of this stuff is only for people who are mentally ill like me. Right? This is when they had me right here. This only people that should be discussing this are people who have a mental illness like me. And first you treat the mental illness, right? Yes. They also want him dead because he says kids cannot consent to puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones because they're kids. And the classic, there are only two genders. This person makes a compelling case, as if one needs to be made, that there are two genders. There's two. Lesbians are attracted to other women, or women who are attracted to women. Men attracted to men are homosexuals. Men who are attracted to women are heterosexuals. And transsexuals are not a third sex. There is no non-binary. They are females who I assume are attracted to males, but want to be seen as males. But he's not saying I'm a third sex or a ninth or a 20th gender. No, there's two. There's two. There's this, there's this. Here are the ways they can get together. I'm one of these, but I want to be one of those. But he's not making the case that there's some third world. Anyway, he goes on about why people want to kill him. He says because people without gender dysphoria shouldn't receive medical transition. Kids cannot consent to puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. And the classic, there are only two genders. It goes on to say, that's why some pathetic individuals want me gone, want to jump on my head and want my head chopped off. Others bully the crap out of me, talking crap about how I'm a twink, I'm a cis-passing trans white person. In other words, they're being homophobic, transphobic, and racist. Yes, the woke left. Who else but the tolerant crowd? They will never mess with my head. I will never shut up. I will continue to fight for true equality and LGBT acceptance until we see real change. And this person has won my respect because this person respects not only me, but respects everybody else in society. They are not trying to get you to buy into their delusion. They're saying I was born with a mental illness that makes me uncomfortable in the one of the two sexes that exist. And I have made a decision to try to live my life as the other gender or sex, knowing full well I will not become that person magically, but passing as them, living my life as them, makes me happier. So that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not for an instant going to say I'm some magical third sex. I'm not going to instant say you have to believe that I'm a man because I say I am. No, I'm a woman. I just want to live like a man. This is common sense. This is reality. This is speaking the truth. This is just speaking the truth. And he or she, I'm going to go with he because this individual has earned my respect. I'm happy to do it. They're not demanding anything. So this guy has the courage. He's manned up enough to come out and say this stuff. He's receiving serious death threats because he's so dangerous to the movement. He is an actual transsexual talking about how the entire transsexual movement is not about transsexuals. It's about power. It's about politics. And it's about ruining people's lives forever. Comes down so hard on Dylan Mulvaney, rightfully so. And that super creepy Jeffrey who looks like the kind of thing on a cover of the Joker, in Arkham comic books. He just plain. Anyway, I guess maybe other people won't find it as compelling as I did. Maybe you will. But the reason it had such an effect on me was it was so unbelievably reassuring to hear somebody just speaking the truth and being rational about what they were doing with their lives. I could cheerfully live in a country with people like this. Not so cheerfully live in a country of people who insist that I buy into their delusions. He says they're not real transsexuals. He says this again and again and again. He says if they were, they wouldn't go out looking like men wearing dresses with beards. If they were real transsexuals, they would try to look like either men or women because that's what they want to be. Blown away. Blown away. I'd love to interview this person. And I suspect that Marcus is getting red-pilled pretty fast because he's finding a lot of hate from the tolerant left, and he goes after them hard. I think he probably has not fully realized just how accepting conservatives are about these kind of things because we believe in individualism. But my experience when I interviewed, I've forgotten his name now, damn it, is a gay advocate. He was magazine editor of 2 gay magazines. Finally listened to conservatives, expected all this hate, found out conservatives accepted him 100%. Yeah. Okay, welcome aboard. The left wanted him dead. He said the worst thing a conservative ever said to him was, I disagree with you on this issue, but I'm praying for you. That's the worst thing he ever heard from a conservative. Liberals were saying, I hope you kill yourself. So, anyway, yeah, there's a guy, 25 depleted uranium, says there's that dude in Alabama that's copying Dylan Mulvaney with his Days of Girlhood thing. Looks like he's going to have people in a hole in the basement in 10 years telling them to put the lotion on their skin. It's interesting because the offensive tranny covered that guy, listened to him. And unlike the attacks that the offensive trannies made on Dylan, when it comes to that guy, he says, I'm not going to bully this person. This person is mentally ill. Very, very mentally ill. If that person had come into a psychiatrist's office, you would treat the mental illness. They're children. They're just plain broken. And instead of treating their obvious mental illness, we're going to tell them, oh, awesome, if you chop off parts of your body, you'll be happier. It's insane. Insane. You know, the funny thing about this is it's not funny, I guess, but as the left continues to move further and further and further and further out into the world of insanity, we find ourselves making allies with people that we never thought we would be allies with. Many, many gay people are really actively coming out against the trans movement, not against transsexuals like Marcus, but coming out against the movement. They're saying you are turning into everything they accused us of being, you know? We're not pedophiles. We're not interested in children, but you sure seem to be. Days of Girlhood, reading books to kindergartners. That's creepy and weird, these gay people are saying. They're right. Oh, that wasn't good for a laugh. I came out of left field or right field, depending on your view. This one came out of left field. P7 2017 says, well, you got caught with a flat. Well, how about that? Now, babies, don't you panic. By the light of the night, it will all be all right. I'll get you a satanic mechanic. Tom Stratton says, I'm one of them, Bill Whittle. Tom, you're one of the individuals like Marcus, or did I misunderstand you? Are you I just didn't catch what you're in reference to. I'd love to hear it because again, come up to the lab. Oh yeah, they've been doing come up to the lab and see what's on the slab. I see you quiver with anticipation. Say it. Patient. Gay. Welcome, Tom Stratton. All people of goodwill and love of America are welcome here. And I think I'm speaking for 99.8% of all conservatives when I say that. Very glad to have you here. Very glad to have you as a countryman. Anybody who's a reasonable, rational person is on the team as far as I'm concerned. And this is the team I want to be on, right? This is the team I want to be on. One of the things that does make me a little bit different than... don't get me started now. You guys are really going to get me started singing. One of the things that makes me a little unusual compared to, well, let's just say off the top of my head, Ben Shapiro or a few others, is that I know all the lyrics to all the music in Rocky Horror Picture Show. I saw that movie 30 times maybe. And I saw it at the peak. I saw it in, where was I? I saw it in 81, 82. For those of you, just since we'll wrap this up, again, you get 3 times. Once the third time I've said I'm about done, I'm done, then I'm done. I saw it when it was at its peak. So it was released as a movie, complete bomb. Nobody saw it. Nobody understood it. In the late 70s, they brought it back as a midnight movie. And shortly after, there's a golden age here, and this is what I'm trying to get to. There was a golden age, and that's when I saw it, where you would go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It'd be your first time. You'd usually go with friends who'd already seen it. And you would go, and everybody brought their own props with them. Now, eventually, this devolved into, it was, I caught it right at the peak, but eventually it devolved into the entire audience doing nothing but saying the lines out loud. And that's just dumb. It's just boring. But this thing, I caught it right at the peak of the wave. This was an interactive experience between the audience and a movie. The movie's not talking back, but they're talking back to the movie. And it was so bloody witty. It was so clever. It was so funny. It was so cool. It was just so different. I loved it. Give you an example. You had to have if you were going to do this right, and again, you go the first time, you don't have any idea what's going on. But the people who were doing this at the time would have like a little bag of stuff they bring into the theater. What the hell's in the bag? Well, for example, the lights would go down in the theater, and you would get it was released by 20th Century Fox. So you would get the dun 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 dun, and while that's playing, everybody reaches into their bag and they pull out a flashlight. So now you've got, and this is back when people could smoke in theaters. So now you got all these beams of light doing exactly what the beams of light are doing on the 20th Century Fox thing. That's actually pretty funny. That's kind of cool. There's a scene in the wedding where everybody throws rice, so they brought rice. So you're sitting here watching the movie, and all of a sudden you feel all this rice landing on your head. That was cool. And a bunch others that have escaped my memory. A lot of it was interacting with the actors on the screen, but not just saying their lines. Like I said, great example. In the movie, there is a song, or there's a lead up to a song, and he says, the guy playing Tim Curry, on the screen is saying, "I see you quiver with anticipation." That's the line. But when you went to see it in the movie theater, here's what you would get. He says, "I see you quiver with anticipation," and then everybody in the theater says, "Say it, patient," that kind of thing. It was so much fun. Meatloaf was in that movie. He was great in that movie. He was just great, and the Time Warp is one of my favorite songs of all time. I actually used it as walk-in music for a while for the Stratosphere Lounge. We roll walk-in music, but we don't record it because we don't want the copyright strikes. But I played it, and a couple of people said, "What the hell is this? It's from the Rocky Horror Picture Show." I don't know about this. I kind of rotated it out. I can't afford to lose any support right at this particular moment. However, the Time Warp was the only thing where people actually got up and just did it. The Time Warp was it's a song. It's one of the first songs in the movie, and it's a freak show of a party. It looks a lot like The Shining, just really, really, really weird. And they're singing this song. And then there's what's he called? Is he called the Professor? The man with no neck, Charles Gray. "You've got no neck." He would sort of, like almost like a professor. He'd animate. He would narrate the song. Here's what you do. It's just a step. It's just a jump to the left, and everybody joined, and then a step to the right, and it was not only fun. It was just great music. It's just great music. I loved it, and it was written by Richard. It'll show up in 15 seconds or less. He played Riff Raff. He played the head surgeon, the head servant in that. "Frankenfurter, it's all over. Your mission is a failure. Your lifestyle's too extreme. I'm your new commander. You now are my prisoner. We return to Transylvania. Prepare the transit beam. Yeah, it's freaking classic. The opening song, by the way, the opening song is a really Richard O'Brien, right? Is that it? Richard O'Brien, I want to say. The opening song is a really genuinely moving tribute to old classic science fiction uh, science fiction movies. And it's really, really insider stuff. You really got to know your science fiction to be able to track this. Michael Rennie was there the day the earth stood still, and he told us where we stand. And Flash Gordon was there in silver underwear. Claude Rains was the invisible man. And just goes on like that. Science fiction double feature. It's a labor of love. And it is so much fun. And I think the first time chat from Omaha, haha, HDL. I don't know what HDL means. Is it HDL or HDI? Sorry, HDI. What's the topic? Well, we've been talking about a lot of things, Omaha, but we're wrapping up with the there's two, with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and this is one of the things that makes me relatively unique. There's not a lot of conservatives that can do this. It's one of the reasons why I like Doomcock so much. I haven't talked about him in a while. I haven't watched him in a while. I've been kind of busy with this. But I like Doomcock. I got the whole thing. I mean, I really got it. I understood what he was doing. I understand how he did it. I liked every aspect of it. I liked the cheesy costume. I liked the cheesy background. I liked the cheesy voice. I liked the name. I liked everything. I still do. I love it. Adore the guy. I adore him. And we had a chance to do an hour talk on Star Trek. It's one of my favorite segments I ever did. Eric Blake is on fire tonight. On fire. And Doomcock is an honorable man. But Doomcock nails it because he gets it. He knows what it is. There's an awful lot of Rocky Horror Picture Show and Doomcock. I didn't really put those two things together, but honestly, it's camp is what it is. It's camp. And I just love it so much. I love people that can have fun with things. Anyway, I loved Doomcock. I thought he was great. But when Doomcock really had me, when he really, really had me, was when he sang the lyrics to Super Chicken. Now, anybody who even knows about Super Chicken gets a check mark in my book. But somebody who can actually sing the lyrics to Super Chicken, which was a cartoon that came out with Tom Slick and George of the Jungle. Most people know George of the Jungle. But anybody who can fire off the lyrics for Super Chicken, that guy is a brother, a blood brother. And when I heard Doomcock singing Super Chicken theme, I sent him an email and said, this is one of the first times I ever connected with him. I said, sir, I think it's possible that you and I are the only two people on the internet who can sing the lyrics to Super Chicken. How do I not want to be involved with a guy like that? Was Tim Curry the guy in Silence of the Lambs? No, he was not. I don't think he was in Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, it's... See, this is the thing. Here it is. Here's the third one. He was Pennywise. That's right. He was Pennywise in the original. And Sarsgaard was great. The second movies were not good movies, but he was fantastic. He scared the piss out of me. There's not a lot of conservatives that get this stuff, and they should. This is the thing. See, this is the language of the pop culture, and this is stuff that that we really, I almost said that we really should know, but at the very least we shouldn't be ashamed of knowing, right? Rocky Horror Picture Show was the first on-screen presentation. He wasn't a transsexual. He made no pretense about being a woman. He was a man who dressed as a woman. That was the first time anyone had ever seen transvestite on screen. And it was shocking. It's still a little shocking because Tim Curry was so bloody good at it. He just owned it. See, that kind of here's the thing about Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror. If you don't go Frankenfurter, if you don't play him straight and play him all the way to the wall, it's just going to be the cringe fest of the century, right? If you go one footstep less than all the way when you're playing that character, then if there's a moment where people think you're commenting on him or you're trying to protect yourself, then you're done. You're just over. It doesn't work. But Tim Curry took that thing to the wall and went through the wall. He owned it. He just owned it. Every single gesture, every single moment he's on camera, he's just fantastic. Wally Lama says Tim was oddly sexy as Frankenfurter. That's really true, right? It's true. I don't have to be attracted to him sexually to say he was a sexy character. He's what I wouldn't be my choice in terms of attractiveness, but he had it. He owned it. He just had that charisma, and he didn't back down. It's the only time I ever liked Susan Sarandon, and Bruce. Come on, it's not Bruce Boxleitner because he's a friend of mine. Anyway, Brad. Brad was awesome. Barry Bostwick, thank you. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, Barry Bostwick. I do know Captain Sheridan. Yes, I do. Captain Sheridan, and you know who else I know? I know Captain Sheridan well, and I know Hercules very well. I never watched Andromeda, so I couldn't tell you what captain he was. But yeah, these guys are a friend of mine, and they're all going to get the call when I get the script down and all the rest of it, and I get back to what I want to be doing. Again, the timing on the having to drop the animation stuff and do this was just a financial issue and an opportunity that I wanted to take. But yeah, we're coming back to all of those guys. I know Kevin Sorbo considerably better than I do Captain Sheridan, but they're both conservatives. They're both great guys, and I'm just huge fans of both of them. It was just an incredible honor and pleasure to meet them. I was talking to somebody the other night. Yeah, it's turning into a Monday night TSL. It is. Well, who cares? I was talking to these same guys where I was talking about earlier, and somebody mentioned Mannix. Somebody mentioned, one of the people that invited me there said, yeah, and I remember what it was. I was talking about courtroom dramas. I was talking to a bunch of lawyers, and I said, you guys are all lawyers. We have something in common. We both use language. You use it very precisely in a very small, very specific way. I use it in a larger way. But every courtroom drama you've ever seen, you liked not because they pulled some incredibly smart legal trick or pulled out some really remarkable precedent or something. You didn't cheer the movie because of what happened legally. You cheered the movie because the person who was right got justice. And so somehow or another, this turned to Mannix. So yeah, Mannix. This guy said Mannix was the only detective who was really kind of nice. All that prior to that, they were all these hard-boiled kind of Sam Spade kind of guys, Dashiell Hammett kind of guys, and Mannix was just kind of a friendly, cool guy. And I said, I can't believe you mentioned Mannix. Now you got to be a certain age for Mannix. I was just old enough to this, but Mannix. Well, first of all, he had a car with mag wheels. No one had ever seen mag wheels before. I'll never forget the mag wheels on Mannix. And I'm sitting at an event of an organization that probably did exist. It's long behind us now. And I'm looking around, and I see there's this one guy just sitting, just like to reach out and touch him with the left hand. He's a pretty old guy, white-haired guy, and I'm looking at him. So wait, guys, holy shit, it's Mannix. It's Mike Connors. It's freaking Mike Connors. It's Mannix right there. It's Mannix. And I wanted to just kind of come up behind him and go, think that's the theme for Mannix. If it wasn't, I would have made a complete idiot of myself. Didn't do it anyway. But yeah, and Mannix was a real groundbreaking show too because it had a black female leading character as secretary, or his partner really. It was a great show. Was Mannix a Quinn Martin production? I'm not surprised. Quinn Martin and Irwin Allen, two really amazing guys. That's the tune. Got it right? Okay. James Garner and Rockford Files, beautiful, beautiful. All that stuff was really fun. And I didn't mention this to the guy when he mentioned Mannix, but it's funny how a good piece of writing will burn through the jamming. Don't start me on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I actually didn't like the show as I loved the show. I didn't like it as much as Lost in Space, but the opening theme music, we run that on Monday nights prior to the show. That dun 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 dun, and then just it's the sonar pings, the boom, boom, sea views just going straight down like that. But here's what good writing will do. So the flying sub was cool. I don't know if Phil's still watching. He's probably in bed now. I was talking about the flying sub with Phil. It's a fun thing about having a friends who were all 10 years older than you and all physics majors. I was talking to him about the flying sub and how much I like the flying sub. You know, in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. If you haven't seen it, it comes out of the bottom of the sea view. It's this kind of cool looking, clam shaped kind of thing. Comes out of the sub, flies through the water, and then for landing comes in splash. And I'm virtually positive it was Phil who said this. He said, yeah, what the funny thing about the flying sub is, Bill? I said, what's that? I said, well, if the sub were in real life, when that thing hit the water, Admiral Nelson and Captain Crane, there'd be red jelly on the front of the windshield. That thing's probably pulling 200 G's when it hits the water. Well, thanks for ruining that, pal. Come on, think. Oh, and, the Sea View, not the Sequest. The Sea View. Bum, 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 bum. Great. So here's what good writing will do. I saw an episode of Mannix when I was 10, maybe 10. Gail Fisher, is that who it was, Isa? Anyway, I was 10. And I remember an episode of a show that I saw when I was 10. And here's why I remember it. I just remember bits of it, but it stayed with me. In the episode, Mannix is kidnapped and he's drugged and he's taken someplace. And then he's released and he comes back to normal consciousness. And he's trying to remember where he was taken, but he was drugged while he was taken. And the only example I can remember very clearly is this one. He said, I remember there were these golden flags, right? And you see this image of all these flagpoles, golden flags. It's golden flags. I saw golden flags. And then as he's trying to find this place, he goes past a car lot. And the car lot has got those little banners, those triangular shaped banners, and they're all yellow and gold. They're flapping in the wind. And I just thought, that is so cool. That's so cool. There are a bunch of those kind of things, that's awesome. That's really fantastic. Good writing. Make an impression, even on the very young. So anyway, well, here comes the third time to say I'm done. So I'm pretty much done. I'm keeping people entertained while they're doing boring paperwork. Usually I'm boring them while they're doing entertaining paperwork, but we're not going to split hairs on this one. I can't do Super Chicken because, and I'm terribly ashamed to admit this, and that is that I don't know all of the words to Super Chicken. I know the song, I know the tune real well. I'm trying to remember. I just remember lines. Because you knew the job was dangerous when you took it. Buck, 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 buck. You would take your super sauce and call look for Super Chicken. Buck, buck, buck. I can do George of the Jungle though. George of the Jungle. Friend to you and me. Ah, watch out for that tree. Where's George? George of the jungle. Strong as he can be. Watch out for that tree. Anyway, you get the idea. All I remember about Tom Slick is Tom Slick, Tom Slick, and then lyrics. I think the greatest writing in the history of all, I think the greatest piece of lyrical work, and I'm including classical music in this, I think the most brilliant lyrics, I don't even know the guy's name, but whoever it was who composed the book, the words for the theme from Batman, that guy should have a statue dedicated to him. Because that was oh, here we go. When you find yourself in danger, when you're threatened by a stranger, when it looks like you will take a licking, buck, 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 there is someone waiting who will hurry up and rescue you. Just call for Super Chicken, buck, buck. Afraid if you're afraid, you'll have to overlook it. Besides, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it. Buck, buck, buck. He will drink his super sauce and throw the bad guys for a loss, and he will bring them in alive and kicking. Buck, buck, buck. There is only one thing, and then you get the rest of it. Johnny Quest. Johnny Quest. If I had to make a case for what we needed to do to save the country, I would start by saying we need to make Johnny Quest mandatory for all 6 to 10-year-old males. Tim Morris, USA says, like the Batman TV show, isn't it just Batman? Yes. It's just Batman. How freaking brilliant is that, right? What kind of genius could come up with a theme song that was sung that had one word lyric? I'm not aware of any other song in the world that has one word as a lyric. And it's a song, it's not a theme. People singing it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Oh, Eric Blake. Man, I don't know what it is, Eric. You're always fun, but tonight you are just on a frickin' nuclear-powered rocket ship to Mars. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. And when that Batmobile would fire up, that flames coming out the back, I had a little toy Batmobile, a little metal Batmobile, and when we rolled it along, it had a little connection so that the flames would go wooka, 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 out of the back of the thing. That can't be true. I refuse to believe it. Jay Battis, number one, says, Batman theme song is my phone ringer. It's brilliant. And Adam West was a real special guy. And Burt Ward, too. Burt Ward. You know, I was watching Batman. When I saw Batman, I was probably 6 or 7. No, it's about 66, so I would have been 7. I took it seriously. I didn't think there was anything funny about Batman. I didn't think it was a joke. I took it seriously. I had a Batman suit. I had the Batman cape, and I had a Batman cowl, and I would go stand at the end of my driveway on the wall with my hands on my hips and protect Bermuda. And people would beep their horns and go, "Hey, Batman, have a good day, citizen." The greatest line in Batman, I didn't get it at the time. To me, that's not only the greatest line in Batman, it is one of the greatest lines in all of comedy. It is, I didn't get it until I watched it, but when I watched it, when I finally was old enough and saw it again, I thought this may be the driest joke of all time. It is just so bloody good. So Batman and Robin go to this nightclub in costume, obviously, and everybody's all dressed up in tuxedos. And Batman comes in his purple bat suit with his purple cape, and in comes Robin with his little briefs on and his red cape. And they're standing there, and the maitre d' comes up to him, and the maitre d' says, "Front row table for you, Batman?" And Batman says, No, thanks. We wouldn't want to call attention to ourselves. We don't want to call undue attention to ourselves. I'm speechless. No, we don't want to call attention to ourselves. There's apparently true story. Adam West, when they remade, when they first brought Batman back, it was a great movie. The '89 Batman with Michael Keaton was a great movie. And Adam West apparently really thought he should have gotten that job. He really thought it would have been his. He was what? There were 3 Catwomen. Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt, and I remember the third one. They were all hot though. They were super hot. Oh God. Yeah, let's just bring this back on Monday because we are going to be doing Stratosphere Studios on Monday. This is really more Stratosphere Studios stuff, but we're getting late and I'm actually losing my mind. Adam West, strangely enough, Adam West and Tim Curry have that in common. Diana Rigg, was she Catwoman? Was she one of them? Wow. Adam West and Tim Curry have the same thing in common, and that is that Adam West, like Tim Curry, went all the way. There's not a moment in that series where you see Adam West commenting on Batman. Never. He never, ever, ever comments on it. Never, ever. He plays him dead serious the whole way through. And that's why that's camp. That's how camp works. Camp has to be played. Camp is a comedy that is so broad that it has to be played absolutely straight or else it doesn't work. Mark Twain actually got this completely. Mark Twain was talking about British humor and French humor and stuff. He said the thing about American humor is, Mark Twain's style of humor is that in American humor, you must never, ever, ever smile or in any way show that any of this stuff is funny. Because if you do, it ends. That's what makes American humor different than British comedy. Absolutely, you take the most absurd situation you possibly can, but you have to play it absolutely 100% straight. 100%. And it works. Innocents Abroad, one of the greatest books ever written. He's going around the world with a bunch of mostly Puritans, mostly real, sticks in the mud. But he's got 2 or 3 or 4 friends who are kind of... So Mark Twain is young. He's completely unknown. He's a complete unknown. He manages to talk a newspaper into paying for this around-the-world trip. It may have been the very first tourist tour in the world. 1867, I want to say, 2 years after the Civil War. So he goes on this 5-month trip around the world. Well, around the Middle East anyway. Goes to Europe, down the Middle East, comes back. And he spent a lot of time in Italy because they got off the boat and went overland. And so he developed, on that first trip, he developed a lifelong burning hatred for professional guides. And the reason that he hated professional guides was because they were so automatic. Doesn't matter whether it was rain or snow or whether a building was coming down on them. They would say the exact same thing in the exact same tone every single time. And my friend Sam just hated that. Sam Clemens just couldn't stand it. Thought it was so bogus. So as this went on and they saw more and more and more of these ancient things and these tour guides just becoming so effusive over this stuff, like, on cue, Twain and his 2 or 3 friends, Doctor was one, the Doc, and a couple other guys, were so bored that they decided to have fun with this guy, with the guide. They had a running joke to see if they could get the tour guide to lose his mind, just lose his mind out of frustration. So they would go to Columbus's birthplace, and the guide says, we have. We show you. He's speaking bad at broken Italian, right? We have here. He's trying to impress them, and they're not impressed by anything. Intentionally, they're not impressed. We have here, look, original letter written by Christopher Columbus. Who? Christopher Columbus. Christopher, have letter written by Christopher Columbus. I get it for you. Look, letter written by Christopher Columbus. Christopher who? Christopher Columbus, he discovered America. I said, no, that's not cool. We're from America. We've never heard of him. And so anyway, so let me see this letter. So he hands them the letter, and they look at it, and he just throws it back at him. He says, now listen to us. Just because we're foreigners doesn't mean you can take advantage of us. If you have any examples of good penmanship, then by all means trot them out. But back in America, we have 4-year-olds that write better than this. No, you don't understand. Did this everywhere. My favorite example is he did it in Egypt. I just feel like I know him. I really do. I really feel like I know. I read every word he ever wrote. Read all his letters, all his speeches. He's my favorite person. He and his friends got so good at this. It wasn't about the guides anymore. It was like, how long could they keep this up amongst themselves? How long could they do it without? He was a legendary troll, exactly, Tim. How long could they go until they cracked up? How long could they keep a straight face, basically? So apparently the crowning achievement was they're in a museum in Egypt. And the guy says he's going to bring out a mummy, and they did a whole bunch of wordplay with mummy thing and so on. He says, no, mummy, Egyptian mummy. We have Egyptian mummy, we show. And so, all right, so they take him in, and this guy is just beaming. The guide is just so proud. Senor, Egyptian mummy. And they look at it, and they just stare at it, right? And they get in real close. And this had already been a running joke for them. So when Twain is talking about it, he's saying he didn't know how he didn't have an aneurysm because these guys had been making the same joke that they were about to get. But they held it for like 15, 20, 30 seconds. They're all looking at this mummy, They're down there and they're looking at it real close, and the guide is just finally so happy. He's finally gotten a rise out of these Americans. And he's like, oh. And after 30 or 40 seconds, when they can't take it anymore, they can feel it. They can feel that one of them's about to crack. So one of them has got his face in the mummy looking at him for 40 seconds. He looks up at the guide and goes, is he dead? Of course he's dead. He's mummy. Egyptian mummy, been dead 2,000 years. Then they get real huffy again. Now listen here. We're not going to be taken advantage of. Just because we're Americans doesn't mean you can play with us. If you have any fresh corpses, then trot them out. But this kind of thing is not going to go over with us. We weren't born yesterday. How do you not love that guy? Right? How do you not love it? Is he dead? All right, I'm done. What a guy. What a guy. All right, well, guess what? This edition of the Stratosphere Lounge made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com who've shown extraordinary patience and support and all the rest of it. So, again, thank you for all of that. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. It's going to take me tomorrow. I'm going to have to edit this stuff together because there's a bunch of stuff that I have to put together. But nevertheless, we're always grateful to our members. And thanks for joining us. And I'm not going anywhere, so I will see you on Monday for Stratosphere Studios, which is that show. But until then, this is the Stratosphere Lounge. Fun show tonight. Thanks again for all the kind words and all the rest of that stuff. And turns out YouTube couldn't stop us after all. So we'll see you Monday. Thanks for being with us, and we'll also see you next time right here on the Stratosphere Lounge.